Give up, Zeka. You won't make the grade back in the LCK. You won't make it to playoffs. Even if you do, you won't qualify for Worlds. Don't you know how much better Live Sandbox and KT Rolster are? If by some miracle you do qualify, you'll be second at best in your group. Top Esports are an elite Chinese side, and Knight is out of your league in every sense. Beat the world champions? You won't. Don't you remember how it used to go back in the LPL? Scout is ready to build a dynasty, and you're just another stepping stone along the way. Beat the most dominant team in Korea? You should know who Chovy is by now. It's his time, not yours. Okay, so you got lucky a few times, but forget beating Faker and winning Worlds. He's a champion born and bred. You might beat his hands, but his mind is beyond your ken. This is the World Championship title we're talking about, Zeka. You know that's not meant for you. Give up, Zeka. What good are your dreams? You only play 2 champions anyway. You aren't built for the big stage. You're holding Deft back. Do as you're told. Wait your turn. Give up. This is another episode of Summoning Insight. As you saw there, I did actually mention this in the past about like 3 months ago or something, that we did an open application process for people who wanted to help with exactly the type of short video that if you just watched the live broadcast, you saw us preview. That's essentially like an almost finished version of one of the new ones. That one was about Zeka from Hanwha Life, but back when he was ruining esports via DRX, which, by the way, just as an aside, so if you don't know, we've hired someone for that already. As you can see, I think his first effort's mega. I'm going to do it in Counter-Strike as well and do some more of those. By the way, quick aside, I had a video recently where on my stream, one of the things I do is as I'm easing into doing other content, I haven't yet done any like Thorin's Thought style ones live because I'm going to have to get into like, how do I script it, but then not like get annoyed at Twitch chat and stuff. So for now, what I do, because the easiest content is I take a page out of Richard's book and I just do essentially what I call petty grievances. I just do the section where I just read all the Reddit posts and all the tweets I don't like, you know. And when I'm doing that, right, I got to some amazing T1 stands, Monty, because there are T1 stands where the worst thing about T1 stands is they don't even have any consistency in their argument. So think about this for a second. A T1 stan after 2023, Monty, argued JDG couldn't have been the team of the year because whoever wins Worlds is the team of the year. Now, Monty, they're a T1 fan and that's 2023. Brother, what the fuck are you saying about 2022? You're telling me there's a T1 fan in this world that believes TRX was the team of 2022. I'm calling bullshit immediately. I don't believe that would pass a lie detector test. That's fucking nonsense, mate. That is absolute fugazi. They just changed their rationale because it worked for T1. Although in some ways, I do like the irony that in some ways you have actually made T1 the Neo DRX in that scenario because they also didn't win anything except that one fucking tournament. I love it.
You'll love this about T1 fans. So last week, because of the Monty and Wolf show, so obviously because the Monty and Wolf show is on LCK and Wolf is an LCK caster, it gets translated into Korean. And so people got big mad at Wolf last week. By the way, this
is at the beginning. If you watch my latest Monty and Wolf episode, this is like the first 10, 15 minutes. It's like, because what people don't know, Monty, this is serious, this is why Wolf is actually damned if he does and damned if he doesn't, bro. Because if he does what the Westerners want, which is like dry roast Faker, like fucking Dom or something on his personal stream, then he would get some of their appeal. And even then, by the way, they'd still say he's biased. But they don't know how much pressure he's under from Korean fans. Like, bro, those Korean fans already think Wolf is like biased, even though Wolf's actually considered a Glazer and Faker in the West.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
He can't win, bro. He actually can't win, can he?
It's like the English-speaking fans like get mad at Wolf because he's glazing Faker, according to them. And the Korean fans are mad because he said Faker was bad at Yone, which is fucking true, by the way.
That's not even a diss. By the way, it's not even like Yone is ever going to be the main meta champion. Like, it's such a mild diss, isn't it, at all?
But the funniest thing, so they got extra mad this week because I called them out, but also because I had this take, Thorin. This take made them really mad on FM Korea. You ready? I said, the people who never watched Faker in his prime are idolizing Faker for things they never saw, and they are living through Chovy's prime and not even recognizing that they're living through Chovy's prime. They got giga mad about that.
By the way, it's even actually a very poignant thing to say, because that's one of the most annoying things, actually. Is like, I've actually made this point many times, but I feel like it goes over people's heads. One of the reasons why I genuinely don't think you should overhype past legends, as if they were still in their prime when they're not, is like you're pointing out there, Monty, there's only a finite amount of praise can actually go around. And before anyone goes, no, there isn't, though, you can say everyone's good. No, because when everyone's good, no one's good. You have to say who the absolute best is, who's on top, who's the dominant force, who's the person being chased right now. Like, by the way, no matter what a fan says, except for in the context of Worlds, because Faker is the reigning world champion, it's Faker chasing Chovy at this point in time. Chovy's the one leading the way in the LCK. He's the best player.
He's beaten him four consecutive finals in a row.
So it's the result. What they don't realize is that, like, I'll give you the analogy if you're a Faker fan. Bro, you remember Faker's first year, where even in split one, the first split, he really was, I think, like second behind Ambition in like voting for the All-Star team, which at the time, by the way, was insane. Like, I remember even saying to a friend of mine who watched LCK at the time, it was OGN, like, look, the Faker guy, if you watch his like actual like eye test, he's amazing, but yeah, he hasn't done anything yet. He hasn't even been in a final. We don't even know how good he is. Whereas at the time, you know, it's like Ambition was actually like a really fucking elite player. He was one of those ones where like you had to have like the Kassadin permaban or Kha'Zix, he'd just wreck you on. And he was just a mega player, right? Imagine if that whole year, Monty, even when Faker's winning OGN, even eventually when he wins Worlds, I just keep going, yeah, but the thing is, Ambition's been doing it for 2 years, so what's it? Stop fucking glazing this Faker. That would be whack, wouldn't it? Because as you're saying, Faker would have entered his prime, and I'd be dismissing it to instead rave about someone else who was good a year or two earlier. Like, that's what they're actually doing now. You're actually right. Not only are they basically overrating Faker, and as you say, if they didn't see his prime, they're almost doing it on some angle. You'll appreciate this. Of like when you get a guy who calls himself Irish because he lives in the New England area, but he's never set foot on Ireland or ever actually met a real person from Ireland. He knows nothing about it. But the point is, you know this, it makes you have to over-identify because you sort of lack the authenticity. Yeah. You have to like really be all about like leprechauns and falling, even though, by the way, they don't even like the leprechaun thing there, guys. That's where you Americans will never get it. But okay, I like it. I know you're just in like basically like in an island-themed city at that point in time, not even pop, you know. So it's like that. And also, yeah, you are missing the prime of one of the best. Like, the joke is, if Chovy ends up being the best player ever, you're going to look so stupid in like 3 years, guys. Like, why not just enjoy them all? By the way, I even got the perfect counterpoint. By the way, if you want to hit on someone like Zeka, who got fluky once, or the ones we all don't like, fucking King, and yeah, go for it. By the way, I'll even hate on Beryl, who's been like 3 Worlds Finals. But like, bro, how are you going to hate on Chovy? You know what I mean? If you don't like Chovy, you actually don't like League of Legends, bro. Because by the way, I love me some Faker. It's Faker fans I can't handle. I actually revere Faker, but the Faker fans do tilt the fuck out of me. They do.
Yeah, we only have to talk about this because T1 fans are so annoying, guys. It's not that T1 isn't a good team. It's not that Faker isn't the greatest player of all time. Which, by the way, they also just gloss over that because you always say, Faker is a fucking great player. He is the greatest League of Legends player of all time. It is crazy how good this guy was. His peak was enormous. But that's not enough for them, Thorin. You have to say he's still the best at everything.
That's the part I'll never get at all. It's also just a bad argument, by the way. Like, I can tell you right now, Monty, I don't take any of the players that are my favorites and act like right now they have to be at their peak, because most of them, like, think about like fucking Aaron Rodgers, they're all old as fuck, bro. Like, if anything, I'm going to play defense now, aren't I? Like, if they lose now, like, for example, the last time Rodgers was in the playoffs, if you remember, was that one where he like scored no points basically, and then like the fucking special teams just got all the points. Well, here's the thing, that was the only time ever he didn't score like 30 points minimum for his team. Well, I'm not then going to go, he's still goated though. That's the one that counts. I'm going to be like, who cares about the end? Towards, I'm talking about his prime, 2014. That's what I would do. But they're so dumb, they're actually taking like. And basically, they're turning around to the other guy that never watched Faker's prime and going, see this guy now who just injured on Corky. That's the greatest player of all time we're watching. Like, what are you, bro? That's the wackest argument ever. You're going to make the other fans think he sucked. Also, guys, do you know how good he actually was? Do you not get that? Do you not know how fucking insanely good he was once upon a time? I mean, you even still see the glimmers. Like, to be fair, when they had that undefeated season in 2022, you still had some times there where he could show you some hands
even
in an army game or something. Yeah.
He was the second best mid laner in LCK in spring, guys. Like, that he was great. This isn't a good meta for Faker. Do I think that means he's bad? No.
I mean, by the way, here's how you know Faker isn't in his prime, Monty. Could you even imagine what a prime Faker would have done if you could have done like a mid-Zeri pick back in the day? Bro, you would have had like 25 kills or something. What are we even talking about? You would have absolutely dominated the whole game. Like, now, you know this, guys. He isn't even going to be the one that play. The joke is they will even have Gumayushi, who still doesn't play the Zeri, or if not that, probably Zeus, mate. That's the joke. They wouldn't even put Faker on it, would they? At this point, the joke is fucking Zeus probably plays ADCs better than Faker.
By the way, Thorin, and especially after that take about the Faker Yone, and then this week we saw the Yone come out of Zeus and he totally dominates, and you're like, T1 fans, who do you want to play Yone on this team?
Exactly. Mad, isn't it? I also do appreciate that because I have that take. I did it on the first episode of the Hot Take Point Made for League of Legends, that Zhao Hu is who they think Faker is. Like, basically, he's like both a captain and like a great figure, clutch, and also, by the way, he's actually amazing in lanes. So it's like they're still top player, you know. The joke is, in the meantime, since I made that take, guys, he just fucked around, made the final of LPL and qualified to World. So, you know, what are you going to do, eh? Because did you see that stat? I think it was our team posted it, where like Zhao Hu was qualified like every year except 2020 of his career, Monty. It's actually bonkers. It's actually insane. And people don't know when he first came in the LPL,
you know.
Yeah, when he first came in the LPL, I think he did like 4 finals in a row or something. Like that guy has such an unbelievable career. And by the way, notice he's another guy that's a victim of the whole Faker narrative, because the other thing I wanted to bring up briefly is this, Monty. The thing that's so boring about worshipping one player is you just end up spinning your wheels. There's not that much more to talk about if you're just a fan. What you basically do is this, Monty, for real. Because there's not really that much to talk. Like, there's no fan club meet up. Something like, oh, yeah, you know what? I love how Faker won 4 titles. Yeah, me too. I love the MSIs as well. Oh, but I actually love the 10 LC. You know what? That meeting would last 10 minutes, right? So what you actually have to do instead to occupy yourself is all the rest of your time is just hating on Chovy or hating on Showmaker or hating on Knight, right? The reason why that's whack is if we're actually fans of the game, why aren't we celebrating the other great players? Like, for example, people like Zhao Hu, by the way, are the victims of this. Like, we never even talk about that fucking guy. Bro, his actual like dominance in China is unbelievable, man. I just said Knight only just got to his number of LPL titles now. Like, and this guy was himself there defending that fucking record in the final in 2024. He came around in like 2016, guys. This guy's unbelievable. But because we spend all our time obsessing about the GOAT, have you noticed that? It's the same in sports, mate. Like, if think about all the NFL discussions, every NFL discussion that's like Brady's the GOAT, never ever brings up like how good was Drew Brees. We have that conversation. By the way, how mega was like fucking Dan Marino or any. And by the way, it doesn't have to be the ones that won. There was like even fucking Michael Vick was mega exciting in the same way as Lamar Jackson. Like we're actually just wasting our time talking about one guy like he actually is God, and we have to be monotheists. Like you can actually, as I once said, it's actually a line I once had in a brilliant written article where Faker became the GOAT. I once said that League of Legends used to be like a pantheon of gods, but now it's monotheistic because of Faker. But I meant it as like a pithy line. I didn't know it was actually going to be like where all discussion would become. Because guys, there's so many more great players we can talk about too. We can even talk about him in relation to Faker if you want. That's, by the way, Zhao Hu has lost to Faker a million times. We can do that if you want. We can do that angle too.
Well, that's because there isn't capacity in these people's minds for any more than just Faker glazing. I mean, it's just I don't understand, man. It's part of like the K-pop stan fandom that is developed.
Have you noticed as well, bro? They don't even just take it that he's like sick at the video game League of Legends. They actually do. This is why I tell you there has to be a religious capacity that is filled with one thing or other, Monty. They make him into Jesus. He's just like essentially for real, like a god that came down to earth, and everything he says or does blesses humanity with the grace of being allowed to. Like, it's fucking mental, mate. He's literally a skinny fucking Korean guy who's really dope at one video game, and even then with diminishing returns skill wise, but has just got such a great wealth of knowledge he can still compete. What's sad is I actually even think maybe you know what I know what I should do, Monty. I've realized it's just I've solved my own problem. I should go back to the beginning of this episode. I should just make a video like that about what the modern Faker is like, but instead of telling the idiots like he's not all these things, I'll just celebrate what he is, and I'll show you who like the captain and the thinker is. Because to me now he's sort of like Napoleon at the end, you know. He has like a few good battles left in him, but he's not going to actually ultimately win the war, is he? Like, it's actually amazing he did win that Worlds. It actually kind of shows how insanely clutch his history has been. Like, even when he basically was like arguably like the worst individual level he's ever been at, he won fucking Worlds. Like, if you build that right, it's actually a great storyline, as long as you don't let an idiot keep interrupting. Yeah, that's because he's the goal. If you let that guy come in, it ruins the whole thing. So as long as I keep that guy out of the broom closet while I'm recording it with the boom mic, then it's all good. So forthcoming on Last Free Nation Productions.
Well, guys, if you want to drown out the noise of T1 fans, may I suggest the active noise canceling of Raycon works very well if somebody's trying to just insist that Faker is the GOAT instead of any other possible argument that you could be having about professional players. And instead, you can listen to your own music and be awash in your own thoughts about League of Legends and not just mindlessly babble about Faker. Well, here you go. Raycon Everyday Earbuds. Pick them up. They're in a variety of colors. Quick charging, 10 minutes of charge yields 90 minutes of playtime. They also have multi-point connectivity, which means they can be connected to multiple Bluetooth devices at the same time. Very handy, so you don't have to like unpair and repair things constantly. So really nice, good stuff. They're also about half the price of other comparable earbuds. Come in their own case. They're sweat proof, so you can do your workouts in them. They stay in very nicely. Great stuff. So use that active noise cancellation, or if somebody starts talking about Chovy, maybe you turn on awareness mode so you can listen to what they're saying. That's
be aware.
A nice feature. Be aware. That's a nice feature. And you can watch all your favorite LFN content with your Raycon earbuds. And of course, as we tell you guys, helping out by working with our sponsors, picking up products that you like and we hope you enjoy will help us out as well. So you can go to buyraycon.com/LFN today to get 15% off your Raycon order plus free shipping. That's right, you'll get 15% off and free shipping at buyraycon.com/LFN, buyraycon.com/LFN. So thank you to Raycon, our partner.
By the way, I do think that aspect, especially of those, but also like modern battery tech, is so OP how fast it can charge. Like you're saying, like 10 minutes can do, what was that, like 60 or 90 minutes?
90 minutes.
That, because here's the problem. From our day, Monty, I'm always used to the idea that it's like the concept of recording something. It's going to take at least as long as the thing. So if I want 90 minutes, it's going to be at least a 90-minute charge. So my brain still can't process that you actually can if you just put it on for like even if you're running out the door, as long as you've got 15 minutes, you can still charge it, bro. You'll still be able to get your whole trip there. That's actually OP as fuck, in my opinion.
Yep.
Stop.
Good stuff. Yep. I've been enjoying mine at the gym, on airplanes. Active noise cancellation works super well. If I'm cooking in my kitchen, just turn the awareness mode on.
If you guys have never been on a plane and you think like, because it took a lot of us in esports a while to get like headphones to do that. Yeah. The noise cancelling nowadays is amazing for planes. For real, it just cuts out all the sound of the engine. Like you will, and if you want to watch stuff like on like a tablet or something, it's going to be mega. Like, because I always used to say, another reason I used to watch trash movies on planes, Monty, is because those old headphones, like from the 80s, like a Walkman, those were terrible for sound leak. So it meant if it was like a movie you're supposed to be listening to, like put it this way, you'd never watch a movie like Seven or something in an airplane. Like you wouldn't be able to see the shadows, you wouldn't be able to hear anything. You'd be like, oh, what the hell? You'd be putting the volume up every time they talk, then putting it down when the action. Like if you have some headphones like this with noise cancelling, you will actually get, for real, aside from you have other distractions in your view, but if you can cancel out, you will get perfect sound. You won't have any of those issues. It's actually mega OP as well if you travel a lot. If you want to do like a long haul flight to America, these are your best friend, mate.
I'm going to be doing that next week. So guess what I'm taking with me? By the way, Thorin, you mentioned this, and I think we should shout it out on the show. We do have...
Also, if you're going to go on a plane, just get Spotify, download all the episodes, then listen on the plane on your phone or whatever, using the Raycons. Exactly. Synergy.
The LFN synergy. Yeah. And also drink your liquid IV, because that's on the plane too. Hydrates you for the trip.
And that'll help you. By the way, that's also one thing I wish I'd known back in the day for real. It's like, I always used to think that, Monty, but I drink loads of water when I'm on the plane. It's not that. It's that your electrolyte mix balance gets off. Like, if I'd have known, I would have taken that with me back in the day too. I wish I'd known now. No wonder you feel so drained after a flight,
So you did mention this earlier, but I think we should shout it out. I know you guys think we don't have enough shows, but Thorin was like, we need more shows. So now we have Hot Take Point Made, which you guys might know from the Counter-Strike version, but now it's being brought into League of Legends. Why don't you describe your co-hosts and what that show is for people who aren't Counter-Strike fans?
So there's already an episode, and I can tell you the second one is in the can and it's forthcoming. So the premise goes... It was actually not even my idea. It was actually a guy called Maui Snake, who, if people don't know, in Counter-Strike, I do some shows with. And I've sort of like, it's not that I told him to do this, but I just sort of made clear to him that you can sort of go my path as an analyst, which is a bit like what I do on these shows. Like, I'm a bit of a firebrand, but I also have I try to do my own narratives, and I basically am willing to have the angles other people are too scared to in the industry. So Maui Snake's a guy who was doing that style. So he originally wanted to do a podcast with someone else who actually, funny enough, never ended up being involved. And then the problem was, though, you need a premise for the show, right? It can't just be, it can just be three people talk about CS. But the point is, we already have those shows with him on, with me on. We've got a whole bunch of them. Like, it depends on what angle of analysis you want. So we realized a cool angle we could do is, I've always been a fan, as fans of this show will know, of the segments they did in LCK, where it's clear before the finals, they tell the players, this is a designated trash talk segment. Please trash talk your opposing player. So ADC does it to ADC. Or I can even tell, spoiler, I'll just let you some behind the scenes inside baseball here, guys. If they have nothing, that I can tell you the production people suggest things to them and say things things like, well, didn't you two, come up the same year and, hasn't he won before you? And wouldn't it be cooler if you was a guy who's a year younger, won it before? They even tell them all that. The point is, obviously, you don't hear what they're saying. You just hear the trash talk line, right? But I always thought the reason it's genius is because since it is essentially an actual, like, real safe space in which you're allowed to trash talk and people know, oh, it's encouraged. Like, he wouldn't just say that apropos of nothing. He didn't just hold a press conference and say, brother, one of us will get the cup and the other won't. He didn't do that. Like, he's allowed to do it. I decided we actually need that in esports. Like, all these analysts that do the shows, one of the saddest things is the reason why most of them aren't like me is a lot of them are actually really scared about fan backlash of a spicy take. I can tell you, Pimp himself got this when he said Na'Vi wasn't top 5 when they won the CS major. Or the other angle is they also are really afraid that, like, they won't get hired for events if they're perceived to be spicy. So I thought, well, the brilliant thing is if you do an outlet on YouTube, it doesn't have to be what you do on the desk. So why don't we just do a show on YouTube where it's a safe space, where, because it's called Hot Take, the whole premise is you're supposed to make hot takes. Like, if people don't know, after we've done it a few months, we've even realized the formula works better if it's explicitly like that. So a great example would be when Na'Vi actually just signed a player in CS2 rather. I had the take, like, I think they'll make like a final or something. And Kassad even pointed out, like, yeah, but if you want to make it a hot take, they should win the tournament. I was like, actually, you're right. Even though that's even more than I would predict, you're right. I should just say they'll win the tournament, wouldn't I? So just make it even spicier. And also, the premise goes, it's not just that you make a hot take and then sit there like a dickhead and go, oh, the other two people on the show, if they think it's actually stupid, just rip you apart and just say, well, like, famously on that show, people don't know, the two guests is Maui Snake, who's sort of my protege. So he's sort of the figure who's not like an ex-pro who can say what he thinks and does work some of the events. And then I have Kassad, who's like a coach, a veteran coach in the game. He's actually, again, coaching and GMing now. And so the premise for him is he brings like the sort of industry stature. Like, he actually is someone, by the way, who can't necessarily say as many crazy takes as us because he has friends that are players and he has players himself. He's in the game. So I thought the balance works well, because if you've ever seen that show, what it essentially usually devolves into is Maui Snake gives a really hot take and then Kassad just goes, are you insane? And then breaks it all down as to why it's wrong. And then I have to keep reminding him, yeah, it's a hot take though, Kassad. Yeah, no, Kassad, totally. Like, what you're saying is very unlikely and extremely hyperbolic, but that's because it's hot. But that dynamic works great. So basically, that's a long way to say the reason I took a while to do it in League. In fact, I think there was even a question a few months back on this show of like, yes, what would I do or who would I hire? The whole reason, as I said to that answer, was I have to get people where that sort of a dynamic can work. And I don't think that existed before, basically. Because before, the person I actually was missing initially was the Mouse Snake guy. Because essentially, that should actually be me, but I wouldn't have anyone to host the show then. So who would I have instead of me? And I was trying to think, there actually aren't really people like that, because there's no one who wasn't a pro, but who's also a big figure and has like like, if there are, the joke is they became like the biggest streamers in the world, like LS. So I can't get someone like that. They're not going to do the gig. And also, by the way, actually, he is scared of public backlash. I mean, it fucking ruins his sanity if you don't know. So I realized the actual perfect guy for that, took me a while, was Key Ray from my Discord, who I've had on my shows and who does EuroLeague with Rich, etc.
Yeah, I do like the previews for MSI and stuff with him a lot of the time too, him and Rich.
You see why I picked him then? Because to me, he's someone where he has like a long history in the game. He has mega spicy takes, but because he's not in any context actually like working in the industry, he is, unlike a lot of people in League, he's totally free to have a hot take. In fact, if you're going to hate on him in the comments, it doesn't really matter to him, Mike. So I thought, right, I've nailed it. That's the one I need. But then, believe it or not, the bigger problem, what I didn't expect, was there was no Kassad figure. Because I was looking, I was like, bro, there's no one who's an active coach who can do this, though. Like, anyone who does this would get in so much trouble from their org, from their players. By the way, even stupid shit like fellow coaches would be all butthurt. And I realized, I was thinking through all the people I've ever done the show with, and there's only a couple I think would even be appropriate for this. And even then, they have to want to basically line up for the firing squad, which is going to be all the fans hating on you for what you say. And I actually realized, this is an angle people won't get, which is, I think, one of my most underrated Best Damn League show guests and hosts is Zabatines. That's who I've hired as the Kassad role. Because what's great is he is a bit like Kassad in the sense that he actually has a pretty long tenure, if people don't know. He was coaching back in like season 8, by the way, if people don't know. And also, he's a guy where, in his domestic scene, they're pretty spicy in the French scene, guys. They're willing to have mad takes. And crucially, I knew that he isn't someone afraid to do that. And he's one of those people where I know almost every show I've ever invited him on, he disagrees with a bunch of my takes, but he's one of those people who's enough of a grown-up. He can do it in a way where it's not like a negative. Like, he could even like tell me it's wrong or whatever, but it wouldn't be like an offensive way. So I figured he's actually the perfect person because, one, remember, like Kassad, his job is to sort of gatekeep how mad the Mouse Lick / Key Ray take is. And then what I do is I have my own mad takes, but then first of all, they're allowed to take them apart. And then secondly, I'm also like the peacekeeper, so I can come between and go, well, I think what he's saying, Zabatine Kassad, is he's saying this about that, but I get your point too. And then basically, the next episode's coming out soon. So I think the dynamic's pretty good. I think we've got it now. Like, I've done the second episode now, and I can already see people are starting to get the rhythm of the show and the context. Because essentially, another thing you do on this show is not everything is the hottest take ever. You come with like a bevy of takes. So like, I always like to start with like a lighter one, you know, and then what you do is you build into the uber mega one. Like, are you ready for the little hint? I'll tease you. The next episode coming out, one of the takes is this: Rookie's career is much more impressive than Faker's, and Faker's never done some of the things Rookie has. There you go. That's just a take. Just drop that one out there. Oh, what's that? Is the whole place on fire now? Well, you better watch the episode to find out what that means and if they agree with me or not. Pretty good take, isn't it?
It's a great concept for the show, and the Counter-Strike one is very funny, guys. So
most the popular shows, the CS one, yeah.
Yeah. So you guys can check out that. So the hot take point made for League is up on the Last Free Nation LOL channel. So it's right there. Go watch it. Go watch it.
And by the way, before anyone complains about K-Ray, one, you will absolutely, if you just wait, like every person with an accent, get to his accent will key in eventually. You'll be able to understand it. And because, by the way, even in the UK, that's actually quite a tricky accent. And then two, don't worry. The reason why he absolutely needs to be on the show, you'll only know when we've done a few episodes. He brings exactly what I want, bro. The hottest possible takes. He is maxing that Schofield meter out. So don't worry, he's killing it. He's killing it, bro.
Good shit. Good shit. All right, let's talk about some League of Legends from this past week. Where would you like to begin? The Cloud9 disaster?
Yeah, the obvious one is the LCS one, because here's the problem, Monty. You have to understand, I hope people get this framing. Even when we said C9 were fraudulent, we thought they were fraudulent second best team. Even if FlyQuest beat them, in our brains, that was like, you know what? I guess they're just third. Nobody, and I mean nobody, bro, not even the most cynical one of us on these shows, ever actually imagined they were worse than 100 Thieves. By the way, basically 100 frauds. Nobody imagined that was even possible. Because, by the way, everything we said about C9 and what they don't have, see, 100 Thieves doesn't have it either. They have none of those qualities. So this is actually a level that I can almost not even believe, bro. Like how bad this is. Like, it's like I saw a lot of framing that I didn't really like, where people were doing that thing of like, see, when you don't have Mithy and Fudge, I guess you don't get Worlds, which is like, fuck off, pal. Like that, because if you're implying their problem was lack of Fudge, fuck right off. But I get the angle, because what they're basically saying that is right, Monty, is the old bad times for C9 was being second best, bro. You know what I mean? Or like going to Worlds and not doing anything. They couldn't even conceive of a world where they don't even get finals, they don't even get to go to nationals, and they don't even get to be at Worlds when you have three teams. So this is actually a rock bottom of a super team that said, yeah, it has to be compared to that TL1, bro. It's almost as bad. And they are, by the way, they're also really good players too. It's not like it's a fraudulent lineup. It's just a fraudulent team, if you know what I mean. Like, each of these players is good enough to be at Worlds, of course.
I think that the TL lineup comparison is a bit different, because obviously what was much worse about that TL lineup was the fact that it cost $7 million to have that lineup, and we're nowhere near that level of investment for Cloud9.
Oh.
So it is absolutely a failure. Is it a super team? Yes, by the Dames, but it isn't the same level of failure as like 2022 TL, right? That was like an epic failure, never seen before or since within the LCS. However, Cloud9 losing to 100 Thieves is fucking crazy. And that has to go out there. Like, you can't say that 100 Thieves played super badly and won this series, because, they didn't. They played much better. They deserved to win this series. They played much better. The parts where we thought 100 Thieves would be weak, like Ayla played a very good series. Now, how much of that is Rel just being really, really fucking good right now? We can debate that. But you know what? People knew what their jobs were. Sniper was mostly on meta champions, right? I mean, he just played Renekton and Cassante. But he was actually timely in terms of when he was showing up for some of these fights. The worst game that they had was game number 2. And the problem there is, like, I don't think Quid knows how to play Garen. I don't think Quid knows how to play Garen, because he was doing things like using his Q very aggressively in trades and then getting ganked, and then he gets withered when his Q is on cooldown, so he can't actually break the slow. Because if you don't know why we're seeing, why we saw Gen.G versus D+, why we saw them last week play the Garen into the Nasus, is because the way Wither works is as follows, guys. So Wither applies a stacking slow that also has a stacking cripple associated with it. So the cripple is linked to the slow. And so the longer it goes on, the cripple will decrease attack speed, right? Now, This is very good against AD carries. It's very good against Azir, who's an attack speed-based mage, right? But the thing about Garen's Q is it removes slows. And the thing about Nasus's W is that when the slow is removed, the attack speed debuff is removed, right? And you also have E on Garen, which helps you deal with the wither as well. But the point is that if you use the Q very proactively, there are timing windows when you can get withered and the gank can come through. Quid died. They also just like walked into a Mega Narn River at Grubs and lost that. So was that kind of boneheaded by 100 Thieves? Yes. Does Quid know how to play this champion? Garen, no. Why was he building Stridebreaker into Moral Reminder? Stridebreaker's fine. Like, please go Phantom Dancer second. There are a lot of problems with the Garen, right? And I don't think Quid is very experienced on this champion or in this matchup, which is probably why it took until R5 to pick the Garen. And after that, we just saw the Nasus just hitting the bans again for 100 Thieves. But beyond that, when they were playing standard, this team played pretty well. The problem also is like Cloud9 drafts were completely abominably bad, and they look really uncomfortable in this meta.
What was the biggest criminal aspect of him? What didn't you like?
I mean, look at game one. We pick LeBlanc, okay? I don't like LeBlanc right now, guys. I think it's like a win more champion. I think it's very difficult to play from behind. I think it only works in specific pick compositions. But that said, okay, you're going to pick LeBlanc. Let's say you are Showmaker. You know, Showmaker has been one of the better LeBlanc players, right? Within this meta. And he frequently saw it banned. But I'm not sold on this as a pick, and even Showmaker has been struggling to make it work recently. And I feel like when you have to go teleport Ignite,
this matchup is Showmaker. Let me just put that out there for you. Just, not that you were Showmaker, so that's just put that out there.
You know, and when we have to play Ignite in this matchup and we don't get any value, I mean, it looked like Quid was super prepared for this because Quid actually took it. He was trading really aggressively early, and he took a super early recall. And he just goes back, TP's back in lane. So he actually is never really in Ignite range of Jojo PN. So the Ignite ends up not being too much of a factor. But if we're playing LeBlanc, why are we playing it with Nidalee and Misfortune? This composition doesn't make sense. When we want Nidalee, right, we want to play an actual poke composition. Now, LeBlanc can do some poke damage, but what the fuck is Misfortune supposed to do in this composition? What do you
want instead, like Jin or something like that? What do you want?
Look, what I want is Ezreal. You know, what I want is Ezreal. You know, these kind of champions work well. If we have like Nidalee, Ezreal, Corki, now we're talking about like, okay, we've got a poke comp, right? We've got something that's functional where we can play around range. The problem here is you're also playing LeBlanc into Maokai, and LeBlanc dashes forward, and Maokai either has his ult running already, has already cast his ult, or he just W's you, right? He just twisted advances and he roots you in the front line, which is exactly what was happening in JoJo. And what is Misfortune supposed to do? Where is the ult that you're supposed to get here? You know, especially because you're playing into Corki Ziggs. They're not going to engage into you. And the best MF players right now are using MF ult as a counter engage tool. Like, you hold it quite a long time if you're playing MF right now until people are committed to the fight, and then you use it. How are you going to get committed? If 100 Thieves is committed to this fight through Rel, they've already caught you out. The MF is already caught out with CC, and you can't do shit. So they were thoroughly like outranged, thoroughly outclassed. This composition literally makes no sense. It is a terrible pro comp. Terrible. And then we run it back, and we run back to the LeBlanc later in the series with Ivern? Like, what? What is this supposed to do? You know, one of the key points about Ivern is you either are running with a lot of melee champions so that he can trigger seed the front line and like really just amp up your front line, or you're playing with brushes where he can actually provide cover for double AD carry. So like, what is this? And you know, the most infuriating thing about this whole episode for Cloud9 in the playoffs is, Thorin, where is Maokai? Remember that champion that Blaber has an 80% win rate on?
Why are we playing Blaber on Ivern anyway, bro? Like, isn't that antithetical to everything he stands for? You know what I mean?
I think Ivern is very strong.
They played back when LS was the mid lane one and fucking fudge, for fuck's sake. No, but it's just not a Blaber champion, is it? You know what I mean?
Right. And actually, that's actually a really good point, because that mid Ivern was a lot designed to enable Blaber, right?
Exactly.
So, you know, I do
think again.
I think that Ivern is strong, but you have to run it in the right compositions, and it doesn't work. And if we go back to previous rounds of the playoffs too that Cloud9 is playing, like we're picking a Mumu when Maokai is neither picked nor banned. Why are we're running a composition. We take Corki MF and we take a Mumu. Now, a Mumu is great, obviously, Curse of the Sad Bullet Time classic combination, but a Mumu is just a worse fucking version of Maokai, because Maokai is one of, if not the best professional champion, because he has non-committal, massive AoE non-committal engage. He has free vision. He has targeted CC that can catch people out. Like, what's not to like about Maokai? And you can accomplish many of the same things.
I'll give you an angle. I think actually Maokai is an example, Monty, of a champion where people who think they're really skilled get too egotistical and won't play it. And I'll give you the obvious analogy. It's like when my mate Forgiven just would not play a Sivir in the bot lane, because his logic, and he even taught me this, was I'd rather lose than play on like a cheap champion. And I was like, bro, it's not even cheap. Like I said to him, if you ever watch Uzi, he does like the most damage in the server, you idiot. So it's the same thing. I think what they do is they look at the Maokai and they're like, this isn't my Lee Sin. I want to show my mechanics. It's like, bro, you're just going to dominate the game if you play this though. Like you don't have to like win with your hands every time. Like you can just win by winning the comp and fucking draft, can't you? Like it's so strong. It's so OP, that champion as well. The kit is amazing. That champion, by the way, will always be in this game. It's another one of those ones that just will never be out of the meta, because it will always be top or jungle. It'll just find a way back in, won't it?
Well, yeah, or support.
Is OP as fuck. You think about the vision, innit? It's fucking bonkers, bro. You can just check if someone's in a brush or not before you go to do Baron or something. It's OP as shit.
Shout out to Blaber. He's played 20 games of Maokai in his career. He has an 80% win rate across 20 games as Maokai.
What do you need? A written invitation?
It's literally, I mean, his Olaf is higher win rate, but he's very famous for his Olaf too, but he's played fewer Olaf games. The point is, guys, is like, why aren't we running this champion? Why are we trying to force this janky ass Amumu pick? Like, I will accept if you need something that's a jungler with a lot of hard engage and some, AP damage, take Amumu if Maokai's off. But when he's not banned, what are we doing? What are we doing? And then not only that, Thorin, but we have to go back and talk about this FlyQuest series, because this was shameful by Cloud9. They were ahead every game. They were getting first grubs, first drakes, huge leads. And then, you know what happened? FlyQuest just sat there and outscaled them, and Cloud9 never forced objectives. They never forced Baron. They never forced TPs. They didn't try to make plays. Like, there is nobody on this team. They're very good at playing the early game. They're very good at playing the laning phase and solo queue, Blaber's really good at picking up those early objectives. But they get the leads and then they don't fucking do anything with them. They don't fucking do anything. There is nobody shot calling saying, okay, we have to put the pressure on. Let's push out the side lanes. Let's try and bait this Baron, get a TP. Here's how we're turning. There's nobody on this team that is doing that. And which is outrageous, because most of these guys are super veterans at this point in time. How, especially Blaber and Vulcan. How have Blaber and Vulcan never learned how to do macro shot calling?
In all of these Blaber was getting to play at fucking Worlds in Season 8 and Season 9. Like, guys, that was 6 or 7 years ago. Like, we keep doing this thing with certain players where everyone acts like Blaber is just set 18 his entire life. Like, he's actually a mega veteran at this point in time. Like, he's been in LCS a long time, guys. So if he's, by the way, if he was ever going to take over into that like Xmithy Meteos genius path, it would have happened already. It isn't. He's going to stay forever, I'm sorry, as a Dardoch self-made mechanics, look at my hands jungler. He's never going to become the brain jungler, I'm afraid. Like, I've been waiting for it for years, bro. And at this point in time, even if you pair him with players like that, it doesn't rub off on him somehow. I don't get it. Like, he's still, by the way, he's a mega entertaining player to watch. I like watching him play and cause havoc. But he's also one of those ones where it's like, he is missing a gear if he wants to be like one of the best players of all time for me.
The thing about it, Thorin, is that the easiest place to shot call from is from a winning game state in the early game. And they can't even do that. I mean, that's how pathetic this team is. I said, guys, I called Cloud9 so fraudulent this season because they were beating up on shitters in the LCS and they were getting leads that they frankly didn't even deserve. A lot of these games where they were B1 picking Nidalee, like, the enemy team would just feed Blaber for no reason. Like, they would literally just walk into river and fucking die to him for no reason. They would get these leads and they would be somehow able to snowball them, but they didn't look good a lot of times in these wins, particularly on the macro side. But because LCS is such a dumpster fire of a region, people were just insisting that they were good, but Cloud9's team fighting in this series wasn't particularly good. JoJo's laning wasn't particularly good. You know, if in the last series, I mean, if we're talking about the 100 Thieves series, if you're playing Ignite LeBlanc, you better fucking do something. Didn't do anything, by the way, completely useless the entire game. You know, if we're going to talk, like, lay blame down, where's Vulcan, man? Vulcan, you got motherfucking outplayed by Ayla again. How does this keep happening? Berserker? Did the skill vampires finally come for you?
So, like I said before, bro, here's another thing. If you're Vulcan, bro, you already filled in that FlyQuest super team. Like, what is this, mate? Does that look bad for you? Because at this point, like, we also have to ask the question of you. Like, are you just a hands player too? Like, do you not have fucking macro elements? Like, we also expect that of you. Bro, even if a jungler can get away with it, support has to be the last resort of some sort of shot calling. Come on.
Yeah.
You know,
and Berserker, have the skill vampires come for you, man? Like, this player, remember how hard he used to dominate NA? He looks super unmotivated now. Can't play Ziggs. Like, is actually just bad at this champion that is incredibly meta. Our drafts are a mess. Thanatos is like okay, but he's not. I mean, he's been fine, but he's a rookie and he's playing on a team with a different language. So I don't know how much we can reasonably expect of him. He wasn't flashy, but he also wasn't terrible in this series. Like, again, Blaber, the paradox of Blaber is that he can get you advantages and he looks really good, but he can't close the game. He can't close the game. And he doesn't do things or enable the map play to get into situations where he can continue to take objectives. And that's a massive problem. So, like, this iteration of Cloud9, like, it's very hard to tell from the outside what needs to happen, because clearly there are in-game leadership problems that can only be diagnosed by, like, using comms. But also, you know, Reaper's coaching didn't do anything. I don't know if these players are just uncoachable at this point in time. Remember, Reaper has coached Blaber before. He's coached Blaber before, and nothing happened. So either Blaber,
he's even one of the people where it's implied he wanted Blaber over Svenskeren potentially, and like advocated for him and said, yeah, he should be like the father of Blaber in a sense.
So wouldn't bringing him back maybe allow Blaber to listen to him or learn something? Apparently not. You know, and there was so much downtime, Thorin. Like, we had 3 weeks off in the middle of the LCS split to fix some of these core issues. That is such a gift, guys. Only LCS gets a fucking 3-week break. Only LCS gets a fucking 3-week break. Also, they got the Esports World Cup break. You know? So, like, where is this iteration of Cloud9? How do you fix it? I mean, I think you can't run with Blaber anymore. That's what I think. I think C9 invested a lot of money into picking up JoJo, and JoJo didn't look good in playoffs, but did look good for a lot of the regular season. But clearly he needs somebody like his old pal, his old teammate Inspired.
Think about this, Monty. If you really could right now just click your heels together and Inspired's instead of Blaber in this team, bro, they'd actually be challenging Tail for the title and they'd be going to Worlds, definitely. Like, they'd actually be a really strong team. Think about what he'd do with these fucking laners and these powerful... Like, imagine Inspired with a lead with these guys, bro. You'd be really fucking strong, yeah. Really.
So I don't know. Like, I just think in a way the Blaber time has to end on C9, because he's just not what the rest of this roster needs. And unless you can pick up a support who's going to do the things that you need him to do. And that sucks, because I don't think Blaber has been individually bad, but the pieces of this team together are clearly just entirely dysfunctional and incapable of learning. And frankly, like, here's what destroys me, Thorin. So why are these veterans incapable of learning macro, but we have Team Liquid, literally a world-class lane swap and macro team in NA with the same competition? Explain that.
In theory, if you think about this, even if you give credit to the Koreans for, like, they're the macro minds, etc., it's not like people like Yon and APA just let them completely pilot their brains. They have to understand the premise of what the guy's calling when he does the shot call to know to help him do it. So, no, I'm with you.
Also, APA just has very good map sense in general, which you can tell because he plays a lot of champions that roam
all that shit,
or ult side lanes. So he's like on top of it constantly.
Yes.
And, you know, the Ziggs, this shit like that. So, like, I think it's just good coaching on Team Liquid. And part of Team Liquid is that Team Liquid has a lot of coaches. Cloud9 cut all of their coaches on site except for Reaper, except for Mithy, and then except for Reaper. And I've also heard that Mithy since he moved to FlyQuest, has been working a lot with Busio, which is probably one of the reasons why Busio looked a lot better in these playoffs.
Does look a lot better with Mithy than they did before. You have to say that. It's true.
Like,
it's true.
Busio, especially his yips that he's had in the previous playoffs are gone. He's been playing a lot better. But I just don't know how you can look at this iteration of Cloud9 and say, like, yeah, these guys definitely tried their hardest. You know what I mean? Like, these guys definitely did the very best that they could. They used their time sensibly, because I don't think it was we ever needed them to prove more individual prowess, but they haven't leveled up their macro game at all. Like, when plates fall at 14 minutes, the team is completely lost. Completely lost.
By the way, even though I will say one thing that I think will always be impossible for fans to understand, it's actually why sometimes fan claims about why you can't learn something are invading, like certain champions. Because what they don't realize, Monty, is how little time you actually have. Like, they don't even realize how much of a scrim is just playing the stupid scrim that has moments in it that have no teaching element or no aspect that you can key in on. It's just a random incident in that game. So already I feel like people don't understand you don't have much time. But if you think about the narrative, you know, I always say I hate the narrative about NA players when they go to Worlds. Because the narrative goes like this. It's like, don't worry that they didn't make a deep run yet. They're still learning and getting experience. And in a few years from now, they'll be ready to go. And it's like, bro, that doesn't apply to any other region. If you're like an elite LEC player, you can just go to the playoffs of Worlds. If you're an elite LPL and Korean, you can just win Worlds your first year, by the way. That's totally put on the table. So what I would say is this.
Faker won Worlds his first year, just putting that out there.
Even though I do agree that things like macro knowledge and shot calling could take time to like bed in, if you're someone who is susceptible to it, like you're open to this information, it could also start working like immediately. Like, you could start to see some improvement. So essentially, when I look at the C9 roster, it's why you're saying if you're going for next year, the real problem is you just can't in good conscience run this roster back. Like, it's impossible after what you've seen this year to believe that it's just like another split's all it would take. And suddenly they're going to Eureka light bulb and understand how to rotate around the map. They're not, unfortunately. It's actually why, by the way, I'll give you the obvious parallel. In Europe, I think the coaching staff did a great job with what they had in Fnatic, but I would also tear that Fnatic team in half. I don't care that they almost won LEC, all that jazz. Like, that's another team that has like massive problems even with a lead. Like, they don't always know what to do. There's some fundamental shot calling element that's missing there too. And if I'm with these teams, this is another reason why you do the surgery. You've got to do some triage. You can keep a bunch of the players, but maybe you can even keep 4. But we got to get like someone in there that helps address this issue. Like, because especially the C9 and Fnatic ones, the C9 one's even better. I think hands-wise, that team could be amazing. But holy fuck, this isn't season 6, Monty. Like, that doesn't exist. 5 players with hands just fucking, lol, we're just beating them with our skill. Like, that ended so long. That's like almost 10 years old thinking. Like, in League, you've got to have some macro knowledge. Come on.
Yeah, you know, and this is, by the way, just in terms of coaching, this is something that when I was coaching CLG, I talked to Aframu about, which is as follows. Like, the problem with shot calling in League of Legends, and this is why I hate the mentality of, oh, yeah, we just all kind of shot call together and it works. It's like, no, it doesn't, guys, because when you do that from a learning and coaching perspective, you actually need to be able to improve. And if you can't ever fix the problem, if it's 5 people changing who is making the call, like, we don't need 5 people to all independently come to the same conclusion. What you need is you need one fucking guy whose job it is to make that call, so you can train that guy. And it's not like, oh, we're just going to pile on him when the wrong call is made. It's that, okay, now you know what the wrong call was, so we can fix it in the future. But you're introducing, when you say, let me just shot call together, it's too many points of failure, and it becomes impossible to get better. And I'm almost certain that's what's happening within this Cloud9 roster right now. And what I told Aframu was, I was like, look, Afro, when you shot call, you know, part of Afro's problem was at the start of his career, he was quite quiet, but he was smart about the game and he's playing support. So I said, look, man, I need you every scrim to call like you do in your best scrims or in our games, because the problem is if you're quiet some of the scrims, or like you're quiet today but you're very vocal tomorrow, we can't ever get consistent practice and we can't ever get consistent shot calling. And I know Afro said to me later that it really helped him, and like Afro became that guy when CLG started winning titles after I left, right? But it took time, I think, for that to sink in for him. And if you don't have that person who is trying to learn this or take this responsibility, and I think the big problem, Thorin, is how can Blaber and Vulcan, the two players who probably should be the ones thinking the most about this, and who are the two most veteran players on this roster.
Also played together in the past as well. They don't even have pre-existing synergy.
Also played together in the past. How can neither of these guys, first off, have shouldered that burden themselves, right, in order to become that guy, or alternatively, had the coach or the general manager sit down and be like, guess what? We need that guy. You are that guy now. This is how it's going to work. Because it has to work that way.
Do you know one of the weirdest things about that analogy? And by the way, here's the thing, Monty. That's not just idiots saying that. This is actually one of the famous battles. Anyone who watched my old shows will remember that me and Kelsey Moores often had. She also believed that teams work with everyone shot calling and everyone contributing and some sort of like commie bullshit of like, we're all smarter together. And what I never understood in the past, I never had this response, but I wish I could travel back in time because I would just say it to her directly, which is, Kelsey, tell me which of the elite Asian teams that are winning worlds have a 5-man democracy where there's no designated shot caller. Can you just tell me that, please? Because what's mad is she was an LPL fanatic. I can tell you, bro, in the LPL, there's 1 or 2 players that are god in those teams, bro. Like, you think if you have someone like Mako, that the random lucky top laner is shot caller? Of course not. Like, maybe he says what his wave state is or something, but you let the smarter pick. By the way, if you want the ultimate example, it's probably Doinby winning worlds. Doinby, as far as I can tell, was on some Ender's Game shit where like Tian and Crisp were his fucking weapons that he was like using, or like fucking StarCraft. That was like his drop ship and his fucking Reaver or whatever.
But it's also,
don't even play the game.
Even look at the best teams, for the past couple of years in Korea. Faker is that guy. Peanut is that guy, by the way, on last year's iteration of Gen.G. I know because I talked to the team.
The one thing you can almost inarguably say about Faker getting replaced by Poppy is, didn't everyone else look like they were a moron? They weren't. They're still skilled players, but they didn't actually have any of the macro knowledge, did they? They like, Faker essentially just had it all, apparently.
Yes. Obviously, I think they were probably individually demotivated by that whole situation because they just played individually badly. But yes, the macro element was definitely missing. And, Chovy and Lehens, I think you can have a couple of these shot callers, but Chovy and Lehens have stepped up into that role on Gen.G, and it's working very well. We know that guy wasn't Canyon, by the way, because fucking D+'s macro was garbage since Beryl left that roster. When we actually sit down and we talk about what do the best teams in the world do, who was it on DRX? Oh, yeah, it was Beryl. It was 100% Beryl on that roster, guys. Beryl was the one on Dom 1 and DRX who was doing all of the shot calling, okay? We know it was just Beryl making those decisions. We know it's just Faker. We know it's just Peanut on Han1 and Gen.G. We know it's a combination of Chovy and Lehens on Gen.G. I don't know about the Chinese roster so much about who's making the shot calling over there, but on the Korean teams, they do not do this like, lol 5-man shot calling system because it's stupid and it's inefficient and you can never improve and it's never anybody's responsibility. And what happens is if you do that's system,
the worst part, isn't it? If you come into the room like a coach, like you're saying in your team, Monty, you can come in and go, Afro, what was that call, bro? And then he has the responsibility to explain it. If instead he goes, well, we just kind of collectively made the call around Baron. I think top laner maybe said he had TP. That's nothing. You can't ever get to the bottom of that, can you? That's actually like you've diffused all the responsibility to nobody. It's just in the ether at that point, isn't it?
I'm pretty sure like Core JJ is the one doing the shot calling on Team Liquid. It's probably maybe chimes in a little bit, but was also never the guy in the late game to do the shot calling because was great in the early game. But remember, Breon would get leads and then hilariously throw them. So I don't think he was the one in the late game, whereas Core JJ over the course of his career has been that shot calling player. So I don't get it, man. Like, I don't think you can just sit there on C9 and I at the end of the day, what I hope happens from this, Thorin, is that somebody on that Cloud9 roster says, it is now my responsibility to do the late game macro, and I will do all of it. Because that is the only way, first off, you're going to make yourself a much more valuable player, just like straight up. I mean, Blaber, your hands might not be there forever, my guy, but I'm pretty sure your brain can be. I'm pretty sure your brain can be. Look at Peanut. Peanut's incredibly valuable.
As a jungler, it's the only way you're ever going to last, mate. Like, it's extremely rare you get players like Rookie and Deft who can just be like top skilled players 10 years in. If you're a jungler, think about who you want to be if you want longevity. You want to be Yankos. You want to be Xmithy. These guys are just playing off their brain now, mate. They're not playing off like, look around, do my hands. Like, they're doing genius shit. By the way, I'll even give you another reason why I actually think sometimes people who have the knowledge for coaching can have deficiencies. Do you know a reason why I'm actually not that shocked that Reaper's team has this problem, Monty? Monty, because I think Reaper makes the mistake that a lot of people who are very intelligent do, which is they model other people as being like them or capable of what they're doing. So since, as you know, Reaper was one of the original god shot callers for a player, I think he thinks if he just keeps explaining that eventually it'll sink into the brain of these players and they'll be able to do it. It's like, bro, that isn't the case. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you have a genius they don't have. Like in this case, you actually need a player, Reaper, like you, who had your mind for the game. You just telling these guys what they did wrong. It's not working. They're not picking up on whatever the sort of like protocols you have in your brain, I'm afraid. Because if people don't know, he was one of the best shot callers. He was a genius.
Yeah. I think when you look at Cloud9, you have to say, what is the problem? How has this problem been continued to, allowed to exist, not only this year, but for years and years and years now? If we knew, Thorin, if we knew that this problem existed, I have to assume that Sven was the one who was fixing this previously on Cloud9. So if you know that about Sven, why are we making GM decisions where Sven isn't on the roster anymore? Because we know Sven is a very vocal player. And he swapped to support. And maybe he wasn't individually the best support player, but he certainly, Cloud9 very much looked like they were making better decisions. And that was with Eminez, who was a filthy inter, guys, like terrible.
By the way, that is also some noob GMing, I've got to say, Monty. Because what you're doing when you say, actually, we can't have Sven, we need Vulcan, we need more hands. It's like, bro, you've got too many hands. You're like a fucking Indian god at this point in time. Calm down with the hands and just fucking get a brain to go with the hands. What are we doing at this point? Like, you already have 4 sets of hands. Bro, we just God, just have someone like Sven, or the joke is they should themselves do the perks. Do you want to come play support? You just need a fucking shot caller from support. You've got everything else. They'll pilot some sick players if you put someone in there. Just bring someone in. Bring a shot caller.
I had a laugh because
come off Ramoon his log cabin right now. Get the chopper. We need you to come back. You're the only one who knows how to split a map and make a shot call. And he's even done lane swaps, Monty. It has to be Afromu's last ride, 2025. C9 Afromu. I'm pushing for it right now. Someone designed the poster. Yeah.
I mean, Afro was that guy even late into his career. Like, he was clutch as fuck. Like, even when his individual form wasn't top tier week to week, like he won the important games, guys, which is the anti-Cloud9.
What proved to you that guy had an amazing macro mind, bro, is he was actually unironically sick on Bard. He was one of those ones who could just fucking carve up the whole map if he's on the Bard. Whereas, like, you see, there's so many like hands players don't know what the fuck they're doing on that champion, bro. That's like the sign of like a brilliant player, in my opinion.
I did have to watch On in the LPL finals playing a fucking miserable Bard game.
I know. That's an example of a player I don't want to play that exactly.
He won that game, though.
Low-key, even though a lot of people don't like that champion because they don't understand it, basically, so they're just frustrated playing against it. I've always appreciated that the component of the ult can actually fuck up your team too. I think that I love design like that, Monty, where like you can actually it's not just like universal good like a Ziggs bomb. Like, imagine if a Ziggs bomb damaged your players if they were next to them or something. Like, I think it's genius that you can fuck up a whole team fight also if you freeze the wrong people. I think it's fucking hilarious. I love champion design like that. That's I get off on that.
I love Bard. I mean, and the best Bard players like Beryl, Carrius had some like mega Bard games. Beryl, like in Game 5 and against T1 in the 2022 finals. It's like one of those pocket picks that when you have it at the right time, man, it is fucking super good. It is super good. Yeah. So what I was gonna say, I saw the Cloud9 GM tweet. And frankly, I didn't even know Cloud9 had a GM because that guy's name is Jack. He is the LOL GM. Yeah. But he was tweeting about how all the players really tried their best this year. And I'm like, there is no way that is true. There is a 0% chance that this is the best this group of players could do. I refuse to believe that. And there must have been really like there must have been a lot of problems in terms of work ethic to lead us here, because this is a team that definitely was either working not hard enough or working wrong. They were just doing the wrong things.
Do you know what? This is an example of where Americans, I'll do a video on this. I actually think they just will never get that it can be a positive sometimes to have disputes and disagreements, and even sometimes to get slightly angry or frustrated with each other. Because, bro, if the messaging of this year goes like this, Monty, yeah, sure, we failed every single one of our objectives. We weren't in the finals, we didn't win a title, and we're not going to Worlds. But don't worry, everyone had a great time, and we all got along, and there weren't any problems. Mate, there were problems. You apparently just don't care about them. Like, bro, I actually would rather hear like that FlyQuest story from spring, like, oh, like there's all like disputes between the mid laner and the fucking jungler, and they have a different vision of how the game should be played. And you know what? Then the support player was coming in like, guys, we've got to get on the same page. If that happened, that's a positive, actually, bro. That implies people care, people know this is fucked up, people want things to change. People didn't even agree with what we did. The sale of like, it was all great. That means, in that case, you know what? Everyone get on a truck over there. We're going to Disneyland. Spoiler, you won't be in Cloud9 when Disneyland trip finishes. You're all fired. Everyone's fired. Get every single person who was cool with this year, the GM, you know what, Jack, you can get on the fucking trip too, mate. You can on the big rig and you can fuck off to Disneyland too. I want people who actually know what an utter shit show this was. I want people like that TL Super team who know it's time to retire now because of this, or I have to leave this team, or I have to go to a different region. Like, people who have shame. Do you know what, Americans? You love to shame people for political stuff. How about shaming people who don't work hard, who don't try to improve, who at the end collect giant salary, which they will never, ever help their org recoup, and just go, thanks for the sack of money. I know I didn't do my part, but lol, we all had a good time. I think that's whack. You know what? You might not like the TSMs of the world and how like over the top firebrand they are, but at least I always liked the idea, Monty, that if they failed, they are going to get a bunch of shit. And Reginald isn't going to go, well done, guys. Even if he's an idiot, he's got the right idea, though. Like, put their feet to the fire. Tell them, I demand excellence. I'm trying to be excellent. Like, that's the one thing about C9 I don't like, is like C9's had a lot of failure over the years where they're second or third. And they, even though I love their fan base, I think their fan base is one of the coolest. I hate this vibe of like, oh, well, pat on the back, better luck next time. It's like, there is no next time. You win now, motherfucker. By the way, you had the roster, if you did it right, to win everything this year.
Yep.
Like, in fact, you should have been in the convo of, we're going to make top 8 at Worlds. Fuck all this. Like, we almost made shit.
Yeah, exactly. That is the narrative of this team. That's where we were at the start of this year, guys, which is, this is a super team. This roster should be able to qualify to get quarters at Worlds. At the end of the year, we should say this is a top 8 team. They should have at least a fighting chance against bottom, third, fourth Asian seeds, right? Yeah. Now, it's very unlikely we're having that. It's, honestly astounding we're having that conversation about Team Liquid. But that also just brings up the question, which is, if Team Liquid can do this, why can't you do this, Cloud9? What is the fucking magic sauce of Team Liquid that allowed them to have APA and Yun improve so much on an individual level throughout the course of this year, and then Core JJ come back online after being in hibernation for a couple of years now, but he's come back online in a big way. Impact have a fucking MVP season, because if anybody, Thorin, should be sitting on giant stacks of cash, just coasting like a motherfucker. Shouldn't it be Impact and Core JJ? That Impact, by the way, cut MVP season. Core JJ playing like a boss.
About Impact age. You know what I said? The problem with the LCS owners goes like this. They are the Getty stock image. They are the guy looking back at Hooney while they've got Impact on their arm. And the reason why that is amazing, guys, is think about this for a second. Do you remember when Impact was on C9 and he was amazing? Then he went to Team Liquid, and Team Liquid became the next dynasty. And then later on, Monty, he went to a team called Evil Geniuses, and then they became a top team that was in finals, etc. And then now he came to a team called fucking Team Liquid, and then they're on top again. It's like this guy is a fucking talismanic magnet for success in NA. But for some reason, all these orgs are like, nah, I want Fudge. I want Hooney. You just want fucking any old shite, any fucking glittery thing that comes in your vision. Meanwhile, Impact is there the whole time. He's like Impact's the ultimate fucking LCS trad wife. He's willing to be sacrificial and submissive. He's willing to let his man shine. And by the way, in spite of all that, he even fucked her on this time. And actually, normally, I hate that narrative normally, like, is Impact the GOAT top laner because of his longevity? No, because longevity doesn't get you that. But actually, this season, I think it's totally fine he's the MVP. Because, bro, this season, really, he also busted out a load of carry performances too. Like, he actually was, like, the biggest mismatch in the fucking LCS. So that's what a fucking goated player that guy is relative to the LCS. Like, for real, if you look back in history now, mate, if you're in the LCS, there's only about 5 names that you'd want in history. It's like, yeah, it's Bjergsen and people like that. But I'll tell you what, Double Lift, this guy is right there with the Smithies of the world. It's Smithy, fucking Impact. These Core JJ are from, these players are fucking just, they're worth their weight in gold, bro. They're not just normal players. And also, it's the idea we're supposed to look at that and see that as genius. Oh my God, how did they have the vision to put Impact with Core JJ? The real question is, why did none of the rest of you? Why are any of the rest of you making teams with Whippo and fucking Vulcan? Like, why don't some of you just get the bona fide, like, auto-win players? Like, these players get you, like, top 3 at a minimum, for fuck's sake. Just sign them. Just sign them already. Stop trying to be a genius. Like, oh, I'm scouting this player you'll never believe with an analyzer. You know what? I don't need an analyzer. How about analyze this? Impact and Core JJ, insert fucking other players. You win. Congratulations. There's your analysis. Can I now be paid an enormous consulting fee? You know what? In this off season, guys, I'm willing for €1,000 a day to consult any LCS teams, and I will just give you a short list of 5 players to sign. Impact and Core JJ at the top, and then keep going down. But I'll make sure I don't put any random players on there. They're just all bona fide winners. There you go. €1,000 a day. I'm willing to put aside 2 weeks for your team if you contact me soon. Limited space is available, but I will be taking consulting in the off season.
Cheaper than an LEC caster's day rate. What a bargain.
Yeah, the joke is when they're like, right, well, can I see some of the research you did for this? It'll just be me playing like a montage highlight movies of like fucking Core JJ doing movies. Like, look at that. Look at that. It was against Rookie. Then at the end, can I be paid, please? Can I be paid?
So, I think you have to boom this Cloud9 roster. Fortunately, Jack is very reliable at booming. He doesn't run shit back, Jack, very often.
No,
like,
I think
he's very good at shaking stuff up. So, not every roster is going to work, but I feel like if they knew this information in advance, that this disaster was completely avoidable, and surely we could have done more since the start of this split in terms of shifting coaches, shifting top laners, and trying to figure out real solutions. It was an incredibly slow summer split. And nobody else gets the advantages, Thorin, of just like having time off in the middle of the split to fix all your problems. You know what I mean? That is such a gift, by the way.
Oh, for sure.
You know, teams should be looking at that and just salivating, because you're like, when you do week-to-week play, you're always like, okay, we only fix these little things. We have to prepare for our next opponent. We have to prepare for the meta. You never have a chance to actually fix systemic issues. And so if you have like a week off, or 2 weeks off, or 3 weeks off like they have, that is such a gift in order to go back and say, all right, we can actually fix the deep issues. Now we could really get in there and try and focus on these things while we're not super worried about our next performance or the meta. Fuck the meta. We're just going to play champions we're comfortable with, and we're going to figure out how to play some of these late game scenarios. We're going to watch a million VODs, and I'm going to have you guys pretend like you're the players shot calling this situation, and let's see if you make the right calls. You know what I mean? There's lots of exercises you could run. So it's sad. Like I don't think Cloud9 was really good at any points in this year. I was calling them fake when they were in the regular season, where everybody else was like, oh yeah, they're so good. And I'm like, no, this team is like not good.
By the way, do you think they have like the most expensive roster? Would you guess that?
No, probably FlyQuest does.
Okay.
Maybe Team Liquid, right? Even though I don't think APA
okay.
and Yun.
C9, okay.
Well, I don't think APA and Yun are on big contracts, but like
sure, Umti doesn't get that much.
Core and Impact probably are.
Yeah, they could.
Umti probably doesn't. Umti probably gets paid better than he did in Korea, but I doubt he's on a giant contract. Yeah. But FlyQuest, I mean, if you look at FlyQuest roster, I think probably you think that's pretty expensive. I don't think, Whippo or Inspired or, probably Quad is like pretty cheap, but because he was on their academy roster. But the rest of them, and maybe Masu and Busio are, it's hard to say. Maybe they're all like right around the same range.
Because by the way, another reason why this is such a fail for Cloud9 is, guys, remember that line, Monty? It was in like 2019 or whatever it was, 2018, sorry. You remember the year where Cloud9, the org, won everything? They won the CS Major, Spitfire won Overwatch League, and then there was even something else, I can't remember what the other game was, Rocket League or something. They had some other game.
They got semis at Worlds that year. That was the year.
Oh, yeah, that was
Cloud9
the
got
League of
semis
Legends
at
team. Yeah,
Worlds.
you're right. So think about where they were at there. Well, for this year, their CS team, by the way, is nothing at the moment. Like, they're not even relevant right now. Valorant, they're completely irrelevant again, even though they used to be a top team. And then now in League, the one that it looks like they put all their eggs into, they're not even going to Worlds. They haven't even been in a final. Like, this is a really bad year for C9. So actually, I agree with you, though. One thing I don't worry about is actually what Cloud9 will do. I mean, he said this in my reflections. Jack actually does get that he did essentially too much of the sort of these are my guys thing, like the first 5 to 6 years, especially with the original roster, where he just tried to keep, the sneakies the world forever. He gets now that, like, that was a bit naive if, for example, in an offseason, you could have gotten double lift or something and then just won everything. So the difference is, I actually think he has those years goal guys. He's not that guy anymore. He will actually do the harsh cuts. If you don't get it, he's killed all his darlings. He loves people like Mithy, and he loved fucking loads of those players.
He loves
I bet he
Fudge,
loves
man.
Sven and Fudge, of course. These are all by the way, that's why I will say, I don't know if he will do it, but if he ever does cut or upgrade over Blaber, then he is a goated fucking GM, because he definitely loves that guy too. That's one of those people he's stuck with for a long time. He probably sees that guy as the guy who's built it around. So I'm actually quite interested to see, because I actually do sort of trust Jack will right the ship and he'll bring in some good talent again. He'll make the right changes. So let's see what he does. He's definitely got, by the way, he's also got one of the best orgs ever that people want to play for. I mean, it's a fucking amazing org to play in. I've never heard almost any player complain, bro, when they left that team.
Yeah. And I mean, he's very reasonable. I think, it does bring up bigger issues, which is that, when you have a bad year and you're Cloud9, I mean, bring up some business stuff. Like, Cloud9 doesn't have, a lot of streamers or other businesses. Like, Team Liquid has their fingers in a million different pies, whether it's, streamers or their media company or like, Liquipedia, their websites, everything like that. Like, Team Liquid has really tried to diversify its revenue streams. 100 Thieves obviously is more of a streamer brand than it is an esports brand, especially at this point in time. And so when you think about some of these other teams, like, them losing affects them less than losing affects Cloud9, because Cloud9 is really one of the pure esports teams. And pure esports teams, by the way, are not a functional business model. So you do get concerned a little bit about Cloud9's long-term health, because they actually have to get back to winning ways at some point in time, because that's the only way, sponsorships and winning and stipends from Riot are the only way that they actually make money. So I think it's particularly rough for them. And now that we're in a really tenuous spot in esports right now, Thorin, because if you guys want to know more about what's going on in Counter-Strike, you can check out our last Four Horsemen episode, where we talk about the new Counter-Strike circuit and the dissolution of the partner leagues, which is really big, because that means a lot of teams are not going to be receiving payments from Counter-Strike leagues anymore. And then in League of Legends right now, what's happening is that Riot is renegotiating the team participation agreements with the teams this year. Like, this is the year that they set for that to be done. And so who knows how things are going to turn out on the other side of the League of Legends team participation agreement. So there's a lot of turmoil at the moment. And like, I don't think a lot of these teams, I think Cloud9 will be okay because of their legacy and success, and their, I'm sure they have a substantial, war chest from their investment. But a lot of these other teams who are pure esports teams, or whose other side businesses have failed, are really going to struggle, because Riot is going to decrease stipends. And there isn't the guaranteed payments coming in Counter-Strike. So what do you do now? Like, the esports team business is an incredibly broken model. And it's guys, I hate to tell you this, it's just never, it's under its current form, it's just never going to make money for the teams. It's never going to be profitable. It is actually impossible for it to be profitable. So I do have a bit of concern, especially when a team that is reliant on being on top, because they don't have a highly diversified business, starts to lose like this, and starts to lose across many titles. Hurts your ability to acquire sponsors. So, talk about LEC or LCK or LPL finals. Where do you want to go?
Let's do LCK.
All right.
Because the thing is, I actually think, I'm just going to say it right now, Monty. This is where people in League can't help but act like what they do in sports narratives, where you don't act like the players change or anything like that. You just act like the teams are the identity of the players. And you go, T1 always. So what's great, Monty, is we're at a scenario where every fan is going to tell you it's obvious. Here's what happens. I've seen this story before. T1 beats Hanwha Life with clutch and vim and vigor, and they revive themselves. They go to the final. They give Gen.G a really close game. Maybe Gen.G wins, but you know what? Faker's going to read. Here's the problem. That narrative's going to get really bad when Hanwha Life just beats T1 in this match right now and just fucking beat. Because by the way, I'm telling you right now, this is like just 3-1 Hanwha Life. Like I don't, I can't see it. I know, but you're gonna go. But what about Spring? But what about Patch? No, give me a real reason now with analysis
in
now.
This meta.
Yeah, because by the way, here's an aspect you're missing about that last split, boys. Tell you what, this ain't the Zeka that I was making fun of in that video. Haven't got it. You should just give up, mate. That ain't him. He's actually way better now. And T1 is also much worse than they were in Spring too. Like, bro, I think this just has written all over it. The sad thing about LCK is it's probably going to be boring. It's probably going to be Hanwha loses 3-1, then Hanwha loses 3-1 to Gen.G. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that's probably how it plays out now. And I know everyone wants the hype, but I actually think LCK is going to be fairly by the book this time, you know. I don't say, because here's the problem with this meta, where is that crazy T1 angle? How does T1 come and fuck with the draft? Like, what did they do? In this meta, I feel like they're kind of painted into a corner, aren't they?
It's really hard because they don't have the tools to really be as versatile as you would like to see them. Like, let's just talk about, you know, pretty big meta picks right now. Okay, so Nasus, but you can't blind pick Nasus. That's going to be a problem for you. How do they win? Well, I will say in T1's case, you know, at least when we got to see them in the D+ series, they did actually start counterpicking for Zeus, which is not something that they've done a lot this year. They love to have the old blind pick for Zeus, but they did start counterpicking for him, and it did work. I mean, he had that big Yone game that we discussed earlier that turned out to be pretty important, and that was certainly a blessing, you know, for this roster. But you know, what about Faker's champion pool? Is Faker's Corki is not as good as it was when Corki had package. His Nasus, like, you can't just blind pick that one so much. His Yone is bad. His Smolder doesn't look particularly good either. He wants to play Azir, but Azir is a champion that's going to suffer if you don't ban the Nasus, because then the Nasus just kind of shuts him down in team fights. So it becomes hard to play that, and it affects your draft in other weird ways if you want to, like, really early pick Azir on blue side. You know, people could just opt into the Azir Corki matchup as they always have and still be okay and not worry too much about Faker and lane. So what happens, you know, with T1? And beating D+ is not that impressive because D+ is a team that has struggled with macro like for years now. For years, right? That's why they keep making the changes they do. That's why it's the revolving door of supports. It's why Moham's in. It's why Bible was in at the end of last year. It's because they haven't been able to figure out who is the guy in this roster who is going to make their macro better, while also not feeding in lane like Bible did. So it's been tough to get D+ there. And T1, for all their faults, they still have brilliance when it comes to macro in terms of pick comps, setting traps, sneaky barons. They are still the best at all of these things. They're still a very good team. But those opportunities are not going to be as present in this meta, and especially when you're struggling so much with your priority. Like Guma, not a great Ziggs player, especially if we compare him to Pays or Viper, right, who are much better suited to this meta. You know, Owner had an extremely rough series versus Hanwha Life, where Peanut just like put him in the dumpster. And Zeka also just popped off big time. So when we think about the rematch, and like you're saying, Thorin, people will say, well, you know, T1 lost 3-0 to Hanwha in Spring, and then they came back and beat them in the losers bracket. It's like, yes, but that was also a different meta. And it is hard to see how some of these players are going to individually improve enough on some of these champions, especially when Hanwha and Gen.G are playing all of the meta picks really well right now. And I don't think T1 like comes back, and even if they beat Hanwha, are they going to just like give us the same epic final that they gave Gen.G last time? People will say, well, everybody predicted Gen.G to 3 of the last finals. That's true, but it feels like the gap is even bigger this time. That's the problem.
Also, by the way, that's not analysis. That's actually almost responding to a question with a question. So we're saying, well, why would T1 beat Gen.G? And even though you think T1 could beat Gen.G, you don't give a reason why. You go, well, didn't you say last time that they wouldn't win close? It's like, that's not, you haven't given an answer there, bro. Like, you don't have to keep asking us questions. We're asking you a question. By the way, if you're a T1 fan, crazy idea. Right now, before this low bracket match that I'm saying you won't even have a chance to win, before now, just write down and publish on your Twitter or your Facebook. You all have free access to the internet. Publish a lengthy explanation of why T1 is going to win that match and then either win or really test Gen.G in the fight. And by the way, if you nail it, I'll give you the same props. I just don't think you can do it. I think you're just doing some weird shit where your reason you believe it is this. Are you ready? For real, this is your list. Number 1, Faker is the GOAT. Number
Faker
2,
is clutch.
Faker is clutch. You knew that was coming. Number 3, well, what about last year where they came back and they won Worlds? There you go. I've done the whole bingo card. But the problem is, those 3 reasons, none of those reasons are going to help you. Because actually, if you listen to what we just said, even Faker being clutch isn't going to help if his team can't get the picks into the game. Like, by the way, what is he going to do with this mid-lane matchup that everyone else can play? The answer is probably nothing. He's going to have to just ignore it completely. Like, here's the joke, Monty. Do you want to know how bad it is for Faker right now? Look, I'm not about to contrast him with an LCS team and say they're better. I'm just going to say they're obviously at their own region, their own ecosystem, right? So you know how in the LCS, everyone laughed at people like my boy Jensen, where he was able to play that Nasus matchup one time to get a win, Monty? I can tell you, relative to the LCK, Faker can't do that. They're not going to be able to get those sorts of like gimmicky games. So I'm really worried even for the draft, bro. I don't even know where T1 goes. Like if they somehow come up with a miracle angle, then I'd give them props, but I don't see where it's coming from. Like I've watched all the LCK LPL. What team are they even going to copy? Like I don't even know I don't know what. I actually think they just shit out a lot. They're just going to get beaten by the guys.
And we're not in a point of time, guys, where they're going to go back to like Hail of Blade spot lanes. I mean, okay, so
exactly.
Like, let's say they start going Caitlyn Lux. Well, I hope they start banning Vi or early ganking junglers because I'm sure Peanut's ready for this shit, man. Like, I think it's rough. I think it's rough. I think good teams are going to know what to do. Gen.G and Hanwha play lane swaps better than T1 does at this point in time. It is hard to find the angles where you think T1 is going to win. Now, does that mean that T1 is not going to make the World Championship? No, they'll almost certainly make the World Championship, right? They're still fundamentally a better team than D+, KT, and BNK Fear X. And the worst case scenario is that T1 loses this match in the losers bracket, and then they have to go into the regional gauntlet. But they get 2 lives. They do get at least 2 chances. They get 2 chances in order to qualify for this event because they'll be playing probably D+ in that first round. They'll play D+, they either beat D+ or they don't, and then they'll play the winner of KT versus BNK Fear X, and they'll probably win that one too. They would be favorites in both of those matchups. So it's not that we think T1 is a bad team, it's that this is really the strength of Gen.G and Hanwha right now, because both of these teams are looking really good. Really good. Viper, look, he started this split, hotter than he ended up being towards the end of it. But again, a lot of those matches didn't matter, so it was hard to assess his individual form. I think at least when we saw Gen.G and Hanwha go head-to-head, that game 1 was really good by them. Doran, I think the last pick, Jax, into the double AD composition plus Blitzcrank was a really good pick. Now, we obviously know Doran is the top laner in LCK who plays Jax in this meta, so it's not like it was a surprise. It was kind of a misstep by Gen.G, but Hanwha dominated game number 1 in that series. And I think Hanwha also learned things as the games went on. Should we have ever picked a farming Ornn plus Enchanter Senna with Azir into Nasus when your source of damage is Azir and they already picked Nasus? Like, no, that's stupid. Like, please don't do that again, Hanwha. Like, he just withers Azir, and Azir just can't, like, his Sand Soldiers just, like, can't attack anymore, right? It's all based off of attack speed. Also, B1 Azir for Zeka? Really? Like,
I know, that's a reach right there.
That's what we're doing? So, let me get this straight, Hanwha. You've got one of the greatest melee mid laners in the world in Zeka.
Slap bang in the middle of a meta like that too, by the way, is where you can just get loads of those picks too. I know.
He played incredible Yone games against T1. And we are first picking Azir for him, even though he's also just like, ever since they changed Corki, he's been good at Corki. and we know he's good at AD picks. So we're going to first pick Azir. And then, oh, wait, who's our other carry? Oh, yeah, Viper, that guy who has been the best AD carry in the world at times. Let's put him on nerfed Senna. Yep, that sounds great. Great plan here. Great plan. I mean,
that is
sad.
some, like, the calls coming from inside the house sabotage shit. Like, what are you doing, bro? What is that coach doing? Is this match fix or something, bro? That's obviously a joke, but this is outrageous. This is outrageous.
Hopefully they learned something. I don't think we see that composition run back. They were cooking over much there. But Gen.G, I think what's terrifying about Gen.G is that they have so many answers to what their opponents are giving, and we haven't seen really that many weird happy gaming moments or throws. You look at the D+ series, like, they came in against D+ and they just got shit done. It's like, you're gonna play Nasus, up, here's Garen. You're gonna play Nasus in top lane, up, Keem plays Garen too. It's like, did you think you were gonna get away with Olaf top? Keem plays Corki now, surprise. And I think that's what's so scary about Gen.G is that you may not like it, guys, but this is what peak League of Legends gameplay looks like in the year of our Lord 2024. In your mind, you think back to those fond times when Faker plays Master Yi or busts out Riven for the first time in a final, and you think, wow, he's diving Nagne on the Cassiopeia on Riven. Holy shit, what mechanics, what a great pick, what a great play. What it looks like now, guys, is Keen just like being super flexible, dominating, just like quietly, iteratively dominating his lane. Chovy just having pocket picks and playing melee champs and being up 10 CS up in matchups that he's not supposed to be 10 CS up in, because this game has gotten so figured out by professional players that these little iterative advantages can turn into giant snowballs. And you don't like that. This is why you don't like Chovy. You don't like Chovy because you don't like League of Legends. That's just true.
It's actually, by the way, it's funny because the analogy, I'll give you a good one, is this. Even though I've no doubt, even in like the wider world, you've heard about how people raved about that Russian fighter, Khabib, right? The one who was one guy beat Conor McGregor and he never lost. What's funny to me is this, Monty. It actually shows how it is really about getting into people's personality and the drama side of it. Because the style of fighting he did, Monty, was the most universally hated style in the history of MMA.
Floyd
Mayweather. They hit the people that just hold you down and wrestle you. They want the people that knock you out, that get into an exciting back and forth fight. Like, if people remember recently this Gaethje Holloway fight where at the end they just point to the middle and they both go rock'em sock'em and one gets knocked out in the last. That's what people want from a fight. So the problem is, in the modern day, Riot actually has cynically given everything that a pleb wants. Like, this is why the LCS viewership dying isn't actually Riot and how the game's run. It's things like how the esports circuit's run and whether it's interesting. Because, bro, the game right now is what LCS has always wanted. It's all just 5v5 team fights around Dragon and Baron. And that is literally a Fisher-Price win condition button that you press and you win the game. But the reason why I know you are right, Monty, that people will never appreciate like scaling, laning, winning without having a fight, even things that are like subterfuge, art of war type thinking, is because there's actually a really good video LS just did recently. This one that he did with Raynor from StarCraft 2, who was just swapped over to play in League. And then he had Max Waldo and then the Revan guy or whatever the fuck that other guy that is like one of his coach friends. He has like a video where they talk about whether you should take the mid lane tier 1 turret, right? Because essentially his point, LS's point, is that pro players and fans just go, they say like spurious nonsense, like, but if you take it, it opens up the map. And his point is like, but what does that mean, opens up? Like, how does that help you win the game? And so the point he does, right, is because the StarCraft guy doesn't know that much about League. He's just like master player in like mid lane or something. But he comes from StarCraft where he really was one of the best in the world at like macro understanding. LS gets this guy to explain that in StarCraft, it's a completely easy to understand concept that when you're really ahead and doing nothing will actually get you even more ahead and make it even more likely you win. It's obviously what you do. Whereas LS's point is, in League, when people get a lead, by the way, this is perfect for that C9 discussion earlier, they don't take the lead and go, this is a weapon that we can either make a more powerful weapon or we can use it right now to like smash the opponent. They will always go, fight now because we have a slight lead, and they'll give a chance constantly back to the opposing guy. Whereas the way you have to think of it is the way the StarCraft guy said it, because in StarCraft he's not thinking, obviously he's one person controlling the whole army. He's thinking, well, if I'm already ahead and I'm getting economic advantages, which is what you can do in League by farming and controlling the side lanes, I'm just making my army stronger for when the inevitable fight happens later. Like, it's essentially like saying, do I want to fight now when it's at 20%, or should I just wait till it's at 50% strength and then just go and fight even stronger, like a 1.5 times? Obviously, you'd pick that. Now, the point that was quite subtle that's made in this video that people will miss is the coaches from the League side do point out, it's a very valid point, that the difference is the Raynor guy is one guy controlling his whole team, so as long his whole battle. So if he understands that concept, it's easy to apply. This is why, by the way, Monty, you need solo shot callers. You need a couple of people to know this.
Yes.
The problem in League is, even if like the mid laner thinks that, maybe the jungler does it and he's doing some crazy I saw an angle, or maybe the bot lane's like, oh, quick, we can get their support. Like, and so I actually think that is still to this day a very fundamentally misunderstood concept in League, that you can literally win. This is where LS, I actually knew, nailed it years ago, guys. In League, sometimes you can literally win by doing what appears to be nothing, but it actually makes you stronger. The problem is, to a fan, they only ever think the knockout punch is what wins you the game, if you know what I mean. Well, whereas in this analogy, it's like if the stronger you got, the weaker he got relative to you, and at the end you only had to tap him on the chin and they were knocked out. That would be a perfect fight, wouldn't it?
But it's like, you know, if you want to make another analogy, like I was saying earlier, like if you don't like Floyd Mayweather, you don't like boxing. And like, it turns out I don't like boxing because I don't like watching the way Floyd Mayweather boxes. You know what I mean? And if you guys don't know, I just don't like boxing. I'm a kickboxer. Like, I enjoy Muay Thai. I don't like boxing because I don't, you know, I see Floyd Mayweather's dominance and I respect it. But the thing about Floyd Mayweather, if you don't know, is he uses his most famous technique is he uses something called the Philly shell. And the Philly shell is horrendously boring to watch, guys, because it's a defensive technique. I will try and show you what it is on my little webcam right here. Okay, so the point is that you put your lead shoulder in front and you make a very narrow target, right? You make yourself into a very narrow target.
Tuck your chin in. Yeah, you tuck your chin in, and your left hand goes down
to prevent body shots. Your right hand stays up to prevent hooks. Right?
In theory, no one can knock you out. Yeah.
So the thing is it's very hard to do this at the professional level because what you're trying to do is any lead punch or any right hand punch, you're slipping with your shoulder. So your head is kind of exposed to crosses. So you actually have to like slip very effectively or deflect with your shoulder. And if you fuck up, you could get knocked out. Like, it's very dangerous. But the thing about it is it's kind of like low energy. And if you're fast, it works really, really well and you can tire out your opponent. You know, and it is a very good defensive technique, but it relies on your own speed and your own ability to see the punches coming in, because otherwise you just get knocked around in the head. It's not the way I like to watch things, but he is really good at it. And it's like Chovy is that guy. And you may not like Chovy, but everybody who knows League of Legends tells you how good Chovy is all the time. You're like, but what about my mega plays? And it's like, Chovy's the guy who gets the incremental advantages so he doesn't have to do those plays, guys. Don't you understand this? That's why he's in the side lane farming. You know, that's why he's so good in lane. And I will agree with some of the takes where it's like, well, Chovy hasn't been that clutch guy that Faker has been, but Faker had to be that clutch guy versus JDG with that Azir play at Worlds because he was going to lose the game.
Yes.
Chovy has rarely been in losing positions. And so when he goes internationally, and is it his fault that Peanut runs it down in inconvenient ways that don't happen domestically? It goes against the play style he's given. Like, Peanut shouldn't be doing that. So I don't know. It's tough to argue with people about this because they don't like the things that Chovy does, but then it's because they don't it's either they don't understand or they actually just don't like professional League of Legends. You're allowed to say, I get what Chovy does. I don't like professional League of Legends. This ain't the esport for you. You probably shouldn't be watching it. Yes. You probably shouldn't be watching it.
I mean, the reason it's so wild to me as well is like, bro, I even have to like fucking humor you guys when I talk about macro in fucking League of Legends. Like, do you have any idea what little kid version of macro we're talking about compared to even macro in League from 7 years ago? And forget fucking RTS games, bro. Like, you aren't even ready for this conversation, guys. Like, that's actually the most disappointing thing to me when we were having that discussion about Cloud9 is, Monty, if those players, most of whom are mega veterans and have been in the league loads and even won the championship, If they can't, any of them, comprehend very basic concepts around when you do and do not fight around objectives, then, brother, we're never going to get through to these guys. Like, at that point in time, they're really, and this is the analogy, guys, they're like super fucking precise people with their hands, but they're just bashing the fucking rectangle against the circle hole on the Fisher-Price, like, fucking toy slot. And they're like, you won't fit, but if I really try, though, I am Blaber, I have sick mechanics, I will really hard smash it. And it's like, bro, it's not going to go in. Like, in the modern day, it doesn't go in that scenario. Maybe in the past, the analogy is the holes were all semi-circular, and if you crushed it hard enough, it could go in like TSM. Bjergsen used to just elbow that shit in with a zillion. That doesn't exist anymore. Now you have to precisely have the correct size, thing, and shape to fit in there. You don't have it. You don't have that. You don't have it, boys. It's actually sad as well, because I think this is one of the reasons why I actually think people like LS will always be really valuable to our scene, because there are so many like meta concepts, especially about like how to train and how to think, that people don't even have, bro. Like, by the way, you know, it's 99% of the discussion we just had, Monty, about Cloud9, their fundamental shot calling setup, their protocols, and how they divide up like responsibilities. None of that will ever happen on a broadcast. On a broadcast, they will make it sound like it was the draft pick or someone didn't click the right button. They will make it for a child to think about. And so the worst thing is, if you watch the broadcast or listen to a Cloud9 coach, you'll just think it was like, we had a bad game. And it's like, no, fundamentally, you could never have won. That's the worst part. Like, yeah, you could have beaten Hunger Thieves, but you could literally, I'm saying this right now, you could never have beaten Team Liquid. That final, like, for real, even, and that, by the way, that is a really big indictment considering the hands your team has. Like, you would think hands alone would give you a puncher's chance. I think in modern day, that's actually the biggest fool's gold of all, Monty, is it isn't 2016 anymore. Hands alone actually don't even give you the big puncher's chance sometimes. Like, I've seen a lot of LPL teams that were stacked, a lot of EU teams that were stacked. Like, it's not even that great anymore. You can't brute force championships. You can have like an upset win. You can have like one game. You're not going to win the championship just off like, we have the sickest hands in the league. I don't think that applies to any team in the world who's on top right now, does it?
Well, not really. I mean, all the good teams actually have some level of good macro. I mean, even FlyQuest
you can even
has been
argue
improving.
this is what BLG, if you don't know, guys, BLG essentially removed Jun, their Blaber, and brought in fucking Wei, who isn't a Blaber type guy, and they're a better team for it, because it just fits the squad better, even though he's not actually, hands-wise. By the way, the Jun guy is actually insane. He's just sat on a bench right now. His hands are insane. Like, he actually is like a stud. Like, but that just shows, like, if it doesn't work in the team dynamic, you got to make the hard cut. Like, by the way, props to them for that cut. They might end up winning worlds off that.
Yeah, it looked rocky for a while, but it certainly has borne fruit in the long haul. But that's a team that managed to improve with the roster changes and get better at their fundamentals, right? They completely switched up the way they were playing with League of Legends. So you can't tell me that this isn't possible. And I guess I don't want to go back into Cloud9 too much, but it's like, if you're telling me, like, somebody should tell me what was the purpose of this Cloud9 roster. Because if the purpose was no brain, zug hands make worlds, okay, you failed that. But also, shouldn't we know that that would not actually work at worlds? Like, you can't play that way, because as soon as you don't have hand diff anymore, what do you have? You have fucking nothing. So what was your plan?
It's essentially the history of TSM at Worlds, for fuck's sake. Every single time we win with our hands low, we're team fighting, and then they go to Worlds. What the hell? These LPL and LCK teams are better at team fighting. Like, yeah, no shit. Like, you have no advantage over them, you idiot.
Like, TL actually is no joke one of the best lane swapping teams in the world. Yeah. Like, they have things they can do that will, I mean, they almost beat T1 by out lane swapping them in Esports World Cup. They did. They almost beat them. So, you know, Team Liquid took the harder approach, which is like, let's get really good at something at macro play to the extent where we might be able to actually challenge some good international teams. But it's a higher risk, because if that doesn't happen, then, you know, if you're constructing this roster, then you don't make worlds, and like, you could never show the cool shit that you did. Luckily, Team Liquid's not in this situation. But I just wonder, like, that's why you have to blow up the Cloud9 roster, because either your goal was, you failed no matter what, but you either failed because your goal was to like get good macro, that definitely didn't happen, or your goal was, okay, we just like are good solo queue YOLO with best players to worlds. That didn't work either. So what was the purpose of this experiment? So if you could answer that question when you built this roster, what did you think was going to happen? Then you can actually know who to kick off this roster. Now, I can't answer that question, but
to bring
you
it
can,
back to the
Cloud9.
Gen.G angle, here's the worst part about it. Even though this is so incredibly indulgent and on brand, it's fucking summoning insight. By definition, that's where we're supposed to do that. That's what the show is. It's me and Monty's takes on anything we want. So you know the worst thing, I'm going to go one further, Monty. Not only if you don't like the way Chovy and Gen.G play, do you not like League of Legends? This is going to be a really hard pill to swallow. So get ready, like a dog, grab them, Monty, and do this, and then force it on their tongue until it goes down the back, and then give them a treat afterwards. Because are you ready? This is going to be a really hard swallow. Not only do you not like League of Legends, you don't understand the highest level of League of Legends. Because you know the way Gen.G is playing right now is probably the hardest, but if you can pull it off, best possible way to play League of Legends. I'll give you actually another analogy from MMA. There was a fighter back in the day, and he was actually quite popular just because of his personality, but his style again was very boring. It was the fighter who was a karate fighter called Lyoto Machida, who used to fight at light heavyweight. And his whole style, Monty, because he came from karate, was to basically like fight backwards, not get hit by you, and then really quickly dart in and do like a karate chop or a kick or something and go back out. And so famously, there was a period where he was a champion and one of the top contenders where he had a stat where he had taken the least amount of damage of any top level fighter in MMA. Now that meant with some fans, they were like, it's boring. It's like, no, think of the genius of what he's doing. He is cage fighting in a sport where other people are taking headshots all day long, which we now know, by the way, do cumulatively give you things like CTE eventually and just ruin your life. And he's winning fights. Remember, this is the problem, Monty. You can hate Gen.G if they were a shit team with bad players trying this and failing. That would be legit. They're doing it and winning against the best teams in the world. Like, that is objectively a very hard style, but if you can pull it off, it's actually the smartest way to play the game. Now, if you can't, like, I can get it again, like Monty said, if you just want Rock'em Sock'em Robots, one, we've got that for you. It's the LPL. Go watch it anytime you want. You just won't. And then two, that's okay. You don't have to appreciate it. But don't tell us like they're not doing it. It's shit. Or even worse, the one that kills me inside as a fan of Frog and as a fan of Lars and all the rest of those players is when they tell me, Monty, that it's like cowardice and like Chovy's a pussy and that's why he's inside. Like, what is that? What even is that take? What even is that take, bro? Yeah, I'm a pussy for not wanting my head to be smashed in, but still win the fight and get the same prize money. Monty.
You can't be a pussy. You can't be a pussy and walk into the ring. You know what I mean?
I know. It's so stupid, isn't it? It's so dumb, though. But I think that is what I think for real, Monty. That's what an idiot fan thinks about Chovy. They think it's like, oh, look, he won't fight. Look, he's just off in a fucking side lane. Right? One, have you ever watched LEC? Do you know that guy Adam? He goes to side lanes and he gets picked off all day long. What are they waiting for? Why don't they just go to the side lane, Monty, and get Chovy with two people? Oh, what's that? Is that also a core component of how Gen.G plays? And if you do send two people, one, Chovy might escape anyway, so you've ruined it. And two, then all of a sudden they can actually go take an objective or fight with like 4v3. Like, you got guys, literally, your complaints actually show you don't know this level of League of Legends. It's actually, because I agree with you, I actually think when you can pull it off, it's also crazy, Monty. Think of this last point. It's so crazy a T1 stand would be the one hating. Bro, the last 3 years of Faker have been about not picking solo kill champions or trying to get kills and literally loading up the rest of the map, avoiding fights when you can, and then picking people off. By definition, by your logic, he's the biggest pussy of all time. Like, he won't, by your logic, he won't even fight fair 1v1. He sneaks up behind you like the revolutionaries in America.
Yeah, he's a guerrilla warrior, dude.
He shoots my guy in the carriage, then he fucks off back behind the tree, and he doesn't go, hey, come out. Out, you scoundrel. Fight me one-on-one. I challenge you to a duel. He doesn't do that, does he? He's taking pot shots and running away, isn't he? Exactly.
Dude, he's the Viet Cong, just like sharpening stakes and building a tiger trap in the jungle for you. I don't know what to say. Like, no, that's exactly. They're like, can we hide in the darkness and take this Baron when you least suspect it? I mean, that's who T1 is. I love that about T1. Yep. But they're not. They're
so silly.
They're not the team you think they are.
It's wild, isn't it?
Oh, that's too funny. All right. As for Gen.G, like Gen.G continues to look
still as usual.
Extremely good. They absolutely are an insane, overwhelming favorite to win this season of LCK. It will be shocking if they fail in the finals this coming weekend. Hanwha looks good, though.
We'll just say this in advance. We're not going to make this up after the fact. If Chovy, by the way, in this team doesn't win Worlds and he actually plays badly at Worlds, don't worry, we'll flame the fuck out of him on this show.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, as of right now, yeah, I'm going to bill it that he should win Worlds. He should win everything at this point. By the way, the Golden Road should happen.
Yes. That is the
Yeah.
That is what we expect from Gen.G, especially because, of course, a lot of their problems that we saw late in the season melted away. Turns out when they had to play all those irrelevant games, maybe they weren't playing their most serious, right?
Yeah.
But they've come in and they've just cleaned it up. They didn't look tilted at all, despite having a very good Hanwha team play against them in game 1 of their series. Otherwise, they've just been dominating, right? They have all the counter picks. They can move them all around in lanes like they showed against D+ Kia. They made it look easy against D+ Kia. Okay, we go down to Hanwha Life in game 1. It's okay. Let's just pull out, we haven't seen Callista Renata Glask in a while. Let's just pull that out. Let's just shit on them with that combination. Let's just start stacking Drake super early on into the game. No issues whatsoever there. They have the answers for the solo damage Azir comp that was super janky from Hanwha in game 3. Game 4, Pace has an immense pop-off game on Jhin. Also saw one from Elk in the LPL finals, by the way. Jhin is way less bad than I see people commenting on. I see people saying all the time, like, oh, Jhin, he's so shit. It's like, no, Jhin is actually really good right now, especially in a lot of these compositions where you have, carry junglers or AP damage junglers out there, because his setup is so strong. And how can you not like the composition that Gen.G drafted? It's literally Maokai, Jhin, Blitzcrank. It's just free hooks for Blitz, free hooks all the time. Gen W lands free hook. Maokai W or alt lands free hook. It's just a pick. It's a huge pick comp. And are you going to win the straight up 5 versus 5 team fight? Maybe not, but you shouldn't be playing the game that way. If you had this composition, you should be looking for advantages and trying to pick somebody up before the fight even begins. You have long range ways to do that. So I think Gen.G is very versatile in this meta. They can play. We know that their Ziggs is extremely good. That's why we see the bans coming out. I don't even think Nidalee is that good right now, but it's still must ban, apparently, versus Canyon. Tristana, maybe not as good as some of the other mid lane picks right now. Still have to ban it against Chovy because he's just too fucking good at this champion. We saw that, when Hanwha and
even an angle I would have said if I'd have been on that Wolf show where Wolf tried to make the case Piers was the MVP. It's like, bro, even the shit they have to ban against Chovy that he doesn't get to play just tilts the odds in your favor. Think how many times someone like Piers and Keane got their pick because Chovy had to have 2 mid lane bans that he just can't be allowed on that champion.
Yeah. And the Tristana bans are coming in because the last game of the regular season when Hanwha played Gen.G, sure, neither team cared who won that one really because it didn't affect the standings in any way, shape, or form. But Chovy came in with Tristana and played a crazy series against them with that champion. Didn't look super good in lane, but the way he was flashing forward, using his W resets was incredible. And the way he's buffering abilities was incredible in that game. So you just can't let him have it. And now the list is just too long, right? There's too many champions. You just can't let them have. So they just get Maokai and Corki for free. Lehen still has his pocket Blitzcrank pick, which it is very disruptive to gameplay. And Hanwha, they've got their own little specialties. We all love to see Peanut play Poppy. We all love to see Doran play Jax. These are picks that could work for them. And Hanwha is probably the 3rd best team in the world. They probably are literally the 3rd best team in the world right now. They're really good.
The LPL's in flux at the moment. Yeah, I think it's totally legit. They could be 3rd.
But don't let that fool you, and don't miss this time. This time, we are looking at what may be the best team in League of Legends history. And so enjoy that. It's that the quote that people say, how do you know if the good, if you're living through the good old times right now? You're living through the Chovy good times right now. Fucking enjoy them right now. Stop being a weird hater and just enjoy how good this guy is. Enjoy how good Knight is. Now, how come we can't enjoy that these are the 2 best players in the world right now? Why can't we enjoy that? Everybody else.
I'll give everyone a secret little pro tip. Here's the pro tip. The mistake you're all making is this. You're thinking that because there's people, rival fans, analysts, personalities that you don't like who hype Gen.G and Chovy, and you don't like them and their take, but not specifically Chovy and Gen.G so much. If you actually want to undercut them, what you do is you watch what Chovy and Gen.G do. You appreciate the good things, and then your arguments will actually be way stronger stronger of the areas you don't think Gen.G and Chovy are good in, or that they get overrated. The best way you wreck these people is you actually make the steelman case to show where they're wrong. Like the example I often give, you'll see me do it loads of times, Monty, is the way I eventually was able to show that Reckless was completely washed in LEC like a year ago was, bro, he wasn't anywhere close to how good he used to be in like season 8 or season 6, when he actually was like the whole carry of the team, and he could set up the team fight, and he perfectly danced on the edge of the damage cord, etc. Like, by actually knowing what he was good at and appreciating what he was good at, I was able to later show when he wasn't good. Whereas if your whole take forever is Chovy sucks and chokes and Faker just wins ... profit, then you don't even actually have much power to what you're doing. So if you want to undercut people, figure out what they're actually good at. Like Morty says, by the way, if you want, it's actually even better, because I even do this with people like Tom Brady and Messi. I actually appreciate what they're good at. That way, the person I'm hating on is a dickhead, because they only like the parts they're not good at. They like the imaginary parts. Like, by the way, if there's ever anyone tells you like Chovy plays like Prime Faker and, you know, just as aggressive and so, well, I'll tell you right now, you'd be right on that one. He doesn't. He obviously doesn't play at all like that. It's never been his game. By the way, he's not even particularly been that much of a late game player most of his career. These are all real things, but they don't do that, Monty. They hate like a wrestling character, and they just go, boo, he sucks. It's like, look, you can not like his style of play, but the one thing you can never say about Chovy is he sucks. By the way, Chovy hasn't sucked for 1 second of League of Legends since he came into the LCK with Griffin in season 9. He has been unbelievably cracked the whole time. Now, certainly, he might have had mental breakdowns, lapses in judgment. He might have even gotten scared in some big matches. He had some bad teammates. He made some terrible career decisions. But if you're going to also say he sucks, or my favourite, I'll always go back to it, because they always say it about my favourite players that are the lane gods, Monty. The Froggins, the Larsons, the Chovies, the fucking Alfaris. They always go, anyone can lane. Bro, these people are like in a class of their own when it comes to laning. Like, we're not even talking about them winning matchups. They like grind and win losing matchups consistently. Like, these people are so cracked. Like, you are just sort of sure you don't know what you're talking about. You say they're not even good at that. Like, they're obviously incredible at that, aren't they? Like, come on. Like, that's another thing, guys. The reason why we know you don't like League of Legends is, bro, Choster said it in like fucking 2013, Monty. League of Legends isn't about champions and kills. It's about towers and waves. And Chovy is probably the best player ever at farming the wave. Probably the best ever. So by default, he is easily one of the best players to ever play this game. No matter what you do or don't like about him. Come on. Come on. He's fucking sick.
Anyway, I'm ready for the Chovy era. It starts now,
Theory,
internationally.
no, this is why I always tell you, you have to hype it in advance, because if you don't, people don't realize, like you're saying in the moment, like as he wins, they won't realize. You have to sort of set it up. It's why it didn't happen last year. But I tell you what, if JDG had won Worlds, our show would have been fucking golden, wouldn't it? Think about how we set the whole thing up through the whole year, from the first split to MSI, Tom. By the way, little note, since we obviously get to the end of this segment, I actually saw that something like half an hour ago, Quickshot posted on Twitter that basically he's available for work. He said, are you interested in working together? Could my skills be of use on your broadcast or in your content? Let's talk. I'm actively reaching out to TOs and messaging in my network, but it doesn't hurt to help people, to let people know here. So basically he wants work. I'm just going to say this right now. He probably means in all of esports, because people don't know he just went into EWC like all the games. Yeah. But I'm just going to say this right now. If you were Riot and you actually had any brain cells to rub together, I'll tell you the most obvious thing I would do with this guy right now. I would come to him and say, bro, we need to rethink this LPL thing. We've got these really good casters and it's a mega league, but at the moment it doesn't have the pop of LCK. Do you know what, mate? If you brought this guy in to be like the face of the LPL and bring that league could be one of the biggest in the world. I'm telling you, this is the guy to bring as well. He would fucking kill it. He would add that sheen and professionalism that you don't currently have, where it looks a bit scuffed and people are remote, etc. He could add that. They've already got the casters, but they've got Nightmare, they've got fucking Trouble, they've got Lyric, all those people are like. You bring this guy in, it'll be the cherry on top, I'm telling you. So I know they won't do it, but I'm just going to put that out there. Because by the way, if he doesn't want that, also bring him to CS. We'll have him in fucking CS, mate. I think he's mega.
He comes from FPS, guys. If you don't know, he came from Call of Duty, actually. So he wasn't originally a MOBA caster. I think he would be good at it. Bring him to Deadlock, man. Whenever Deadlock, so if you want a guy with FPS and MOBA casting experience to cast your FPS MOBA or third person shooter, whatever. Shooter MOBA. Maybe that's the guy. I don't know. That seems like a pretty good choice. Him and Riv, probably the two guys you would want most, who are the play-by-play guys who both have that shooter and the background, or or Uber, Uber as well
sure.
would be another one.
Yeah.
Who would be a very good choice for that. There are a few people who have both, or Wolf. I mean, he does color commentary, but in terms of play-by-plays, the guys who have done MOBAs, because if you guys don't know, Uber from Overwatch used to do, when he was with ESL, used to do League of Legends. I've casted with him in League of Legends previously, so he's very good as well. Let's talk about another one of our sponsors before we hit up some LEC and some LPL, and that is, they're back, guys. Thank you very much to Mando for returning. They have deodorant and soaps and other men's cleanliness products. This is their solid stick deodorant, which is, as you might expect. But they have a lot of other products as well, which have been really good. Again, they do not have any kind of aluminum in them. They are not an antiperspirant. They are a deodorant, but they are formulated with mandelic acid, which allows them to stop the odor from actually forming. So it's not just covering it up. It's not preventing you from sweating. The mandelic acid is the part that stops the odor from happening in the first place. So it's like a different kind of chemical that is in there. It's been working great for me personally.
I mean, essentially, here's the best way to think of it. Sweat's not a problem. Your body needs to sweat. The problem is we don't like the smell of it, and that's the genius of what this attacks. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't like the after effects of that, right? But they have a lot of different products that you guys might find interesting. So, like, for example, they have bar soap, they have body wash, they have the solid stick deodorant. They have cream tube deodorant, which is kind of like a lotion, which I hadn't used before, but I'm actually using that a lot now from Mando. So you just kind of like rub it into your pits or any other feet or wherever else you don't want BO, and that's been really good. So I've been liking it a lot, guys. They've got a lot of scents that are I would say attractive to men. They've got like clover wood,
a really nice, like,
bourbon leather.
The woody smells. I actually love that. If people don't know, I won't say the brands, but people know famous brands. That's the style. Older men, like, it actually is just a very appealing smell, isn't it?
Yep.
Like, I wouldn't want it to smell like fucking Cherry's Jubilee or something. I want it to have like a manly sort of smell to it, a musk, as it were.
Yeah. And you guys, if you want to try it out, just give it a shot for yourself. There's not a really big commitment here. You can try the Mando starter pack if you're a new customer, and it comes with one of these: the solid stick deodorant, a cream tube deodorant. So you get both kinds. You can try both out, see what you like, and 2 free products of your choice. So you can get a mini body wash. The deodorant wipes are actually really clutch, guys, because especially if I've been like stewing in my juices sitting here at the computer for hours and hours, I do like to say that you can grab one of those wipes, just run it underneath your arms, and it does freshen you up immediately. It's pretty great. It's very effective. If you're going camping or where you might not be able to take a shower for a little bit, also super good if you're out sweating for a day and you have to go somewhere else, but you're not able to take a shower right afterwards. That could be a good time to do it. Maybe you're fresh on a long plane flight. You're going to freshen up on the plane. Lots of use for those that you may not be thinking about right now, but you'll probably be glad that you have them in the end. And we do have a discount code to help you guys get hooked on our favorite smelling whole body deodorant on the market. New customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code, which is summoning. That equates to 40% off your starter pack. Use code summoning, as in summoning insight, but just summoning at shopmando.com, shopmando.com. It's great. So enjoy. Try out the starter pack. Let's go on over to LEC, shall we? G2 wins again. Another shocking finish for this league. Fnatic fans in absolute shambles. Nobody actually coming to the arena in Munich, which I've heard some different, you'll find this funny, Thorin, I've heard some different explanations for this about, especially, apparently, what people told me, it was like about 2/3 full there on the second day, the day of the finals, and it was obviously like pretty empty on Saturday, but apparently, so one of the problems was that Adele apparently had a big concert in Munich that weekend. Okay. So like accommodation prices were like stratospheric. So like a lot of people, apparently they sold tickets, but a lot of people just didn't show because the hotels and shit were so expensive.
That sounds sus as fuck though, because here's the problem, Monty. They're not in the middle of like the Salt Lake fucking desert or something, bro. Like it's in Germany. You could just go. Yeah, I can tell you this happened before. Like you could just go to a town nearby and get some more and traveling on the train. They have a train system there. But
apparently it was kind of hard because of this. That's what I heard. So, but also they were pushing really hard. And I do know behind the scenes that Riot was like teams, you better say this. And that's why you heard this shouted out about a bazillion times on the LEC broadcast. They were like, buy tickets, buy tickets, buy tickets, buy tickets, buy tickets, buy tickets, because they weren't selling. They weren't selling. The tickets were not selling. Usually you don't hear it that many times on the broadcast, but it ended up being like pretty empty. It was also very clear from their opening ceremony that the budgets had been cut pretty heavily. Like, they did what they could, but it wasn't anywhere near what we've come to expect from them, or especially if we compare it to the LPL opening ceremony, and no doubt what we will see this weekend with the LCK opening ceremony. It was a little underwhelming with just some like fans in like cloaks like cheering on the sideline and people walking up the staircase. It was like watching esports 10 years ago. But that's just the League of Legends world we live in.
Because here's the thing I really don't get, Monty. One of the things I actually appreciate about some people in League, even Riot to some degree, but the difference is I've had a more impact in Counter-Strike. But I'll tell you one thing I actually do think, which is these people aren't idiots. They sometimes just don't have the initial vision, right? But once you give them the vision, they will start to do it. So I can tell you, Monty, you can go look this up. I did a video a few years ago before anyone like Cloud9 or Team Liquid ever did a fan club, where I explained that one of the OP things about Korean and Chinese esports is the fan club system, because the fan club is unofficially connected to the org. And so what you do is, it's not really just like the Fnatic one where it's literally like a lunatic ultra who made a Discord and then just holds Sam Matthews hostage, and even said, not a joke, once, like he was seen in an image where he had a G2 jersey on and acted like he was a player and he was on the transfer market, and that Fnatic didn't up what they did for fans. He would transfer to being a fan of G2. That's how mentally ill fans in Europe are. But no, I'm talking about in Korea, the fan club is organized, by the way, actually, interestingly enough, often by women. It's organized by these mega fans of the team who are like lifelong T1 stands or KT stands or Dam1 fans or whatever. And what they do is the team coordinates with them. And when they have matches, they not only hold tickets for them, but I'm going to guess they even sell the tickets through the fan club. And as a result, not only will you guarantee fans attend your LCK final, but they'll have a section, and you'll have your section that does your cheers, 3, 2, 1, whatever, before the game. You'll do yours with the signs and the poster, right? Here's what they got in the West. They finally, after I did that video, Monty, did start it. People like Team Liquid and Cloud9 did the Stratus and all that fucking shit. But the flaw is this: they just seem to have done it where you subscribe and you get, updates, or you get like interesting details, or you get, I don't know, some sort of merch or whatever. The thing that they still haven't nailed, and I get it, because in theory, by the way, if you're one of the teams, you could just turn around to Riot and go, what exactly do you offer in this equation aside from the game? It should be Riot's job to sell the tickets, Monty. But that is the most obvious way we're going to have to do it in this world where it's hard to fill stadiums. It needs to be like that. It needs to be like, if Cloud9's in the final of LCS, they get like, I don't know, 1,000 tickets, and then they have their own people they distribute through, they organize, they help arrange, you get, maybe you even do a thing, by the way, in the cities outside the major place where the final is, you boss people in or something, or you arrange a meetup, whatever it is. I actually do sort of low-key agree. There is a way we can activate better, because I believe they already do that in Korea, and they kill it with how they do it, bro. Like, when have they ever had an LCK final where half the people turned up? You know what I mean? It just doesn't happen.
It's also like when, the fan clubs will give out free like swag. It's not expensive stuff, but like fan signs or thunder sticks or stuff like that onto the seats. And, they actually do organize a lot of that stuff in Korea.
Yeah, it's dope, isn't it?
They come out to the stadium in advance or whatever, and they like put it on all the seats. Some of that is the tournament organizer, but some of it has also been the fan clubs in the past. They bring in the giant T1 flags or whatever. Yep. So yeah, there is a lot more of that, and I think it can be done better. I think it can be hard, especially in America and Europe, because people generally have to travel greater distances. Remember that the Korean peninsula is 50 million people in a very small amount of land. So it's easier to just be like, oh, I'm just going to drop everything and go to this. Whereas like when you have the losers finals and the winners finals on the same weekend, which again, they do in the LCK, but it's easier to fix this. It can be harder to like organize those fans at the drop of a hat, but they're also not having problems selling out. And as far as I can tell, at least, there are far fewer issues with scalpers and the secondhand market with tickets in Korea, because there were no empty. I would tell you right now, it was a 15,000 person stadium that I was at for the LCK Spring Finals. There were no empty seats. It was crazy. Like, it was jammed. It was jammed. So either those people are buying the tickets off the secondhand market, or the scalpers, and apparently like the bots and the scalpers got a fuck ton of the London Worlds Finals tickets. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out in terms of the audience. Probably people will just pay the outrageous fees. But
by the way, I still don't get that angle as well. When people go, oh, but it was all bought by scalpers, right? The scalper is incentivized to sell the ticket by definition. Otherwise, he loses money on the ticket. So why would scalpers have bought thousands of tickets, then sell fuck all and just go, oh, I guess we just fucked everyone's business up? That doesn't even make sense. If the appeal was there,
it'll go down. Yeah, like the value will go down.
Here's the only complaint about a scalper. He charged me too much for the ticket. If you wanted to go, it's not that the stadium's then empty. He wants to sell you the ticket. It's just for more money, obviously. And by the way, if that's true, at this point in time, I'm just going to say it right. Scalpers are better at selling tickets than you then, dickhead. So why don't you sort your shit out? At this point, just give it to the scalper. Give him the ticket in the first place. You'll sell out.
I mean, shouldn't Riot be charging more for these tickets would be the next question if the secondary market is so crazy.
All right, here's another one, Monty. You know what? I always like us to stake out incredibly unpopular positions that'll never be popular and will only make people hate us. So I'm going to take a classic one of those positions. Are you ready?
Great.
So this is actually, I'll give you a quick analogy. This is something I'm seeing outside of esports. So you might not have heard about this, Monty, but believe it or not, Oasis has actually decided they're going to do a reunion tour.
Yeah.
They're not going to make music. They're just going to do a tour like people wanted because they've been apart for 15 years, right? So a premise is, you can imagine everyone who's an Oasis fan immediately went, it was on Saturday, and went on the website and tried to get tickets, right? And the problem is there's two factors. One, because it's been 15 years and they've sold, I don't know, 50 million albums worldwide, Monty, you can imagine there's too many people want to get the tickets, right? So one, when you went on the website, you would actually unironically have a thing that would tell you were like 400,000 in line. And obviously there aren't 400,000 tickets. But you sit there and you just hope, enough people drop out, their connection fails, that you're going to get there and buy the ticket. Are you ready? There's complaint one. Now, that complaint isn't actually, if you're not a moron, a complaint about anything Oasis or the ticket vendors doing. That's a complaint that there's too much demand for something that has a finite supply. There are too many people want to see them. That's a good problem to have, by the way, but it's impossible to fix. Like, they're not going to go, Monty, and hire out that, like, River Plate Stadium in fucking Argentina and get, like, 100,000 people in there. Like, they're just going to do the gig, and if they can only sell 30,000, 40,000, they're going to sell that many tickets. Are you ready for point two? The second complaint is even worse, Monty, but I know from someone who knows the esports industry, you'll appreciate this. Are you ready for the other complaint? There's people who sat there like a dickhead for 6 hours. They got all the way down in the queue. Are you ready? This is going to blow your fucking mind when you think of the context I just said. They haven't been together for 15 years. This might be a once-in-a-lifetime chance to see them. The guy got to the site, then he went to buy the ticket, and he goes, it's like £300. £300. Do you understand the concept of supply and demand? Like, in that scenario, you're not seeing an up-and-coming new band that plays every week at your local bar for €10, cover and buy a drink. You're saying, I want to be someone, by the way, you've complained for 15 years. I want to be one of the limited number of people with a massive demand who gets to see maybe a once-in-a-lifetime thing, which is the reunion of Oasis and the last ever gig that I've been with. Their whole thing's sort of like, yeah, but what the fuck? Why is the Mexican soda imported more expensive than the local Coca-Cola? It's like, you guys are morons. I'm just going to say the same thing happens in League every time, Monty. People go, look at the price of the tickets. Bro, what are we comparing it to? It's the only World Championship League of Legends has. There's one per year. If you miss it, by the way, you can't go back in time. And then secondly, there is insane demand because the whole world watches League of Legends. Not NA, obviously, but in theory, the whole world watches. And then lastly, by the way, it is totally reasonable that that ticket could even cost like $300. You're going to go and sit for 10 hours and even be entertained between the fucking matches. You're even going to have people like Shocks or back in the day Quickshot come out and do like almost a stand-up comedy set before where they engage you and ask you to cheer over. They're going to do all this for 10 hours. Whereas, by the way, even the fucking gig you're complaining about would have been 2 hours max. And you didn't, and you'd have had to wait hours. Yeah, I actually don't think people get
the fan fest outside. Like, Riot sets up like a carnival around the stadium, and like there's tons of stuff to do, and you could like take pictures with your favorite.
If that's the price, it just has to be that price. But I'm totally fine with that. It already, by the way, that price doesn't even fund esports. I'm totally cool with that. And by the way, that means if I was 15 Monty, I wouldn't get to go to Worlds. But you know what? So what? Maybe I watch it. I don't know. Are you ready? For free on Twitch with the best view in the fucking world. Like, people will complain about anything, mate. They'll actually complain about anything.
I think it's funny too. Riot actually could probably fill bigger venues because remember, they got 40,000 people for 2014 Worlds at the Seoul World Cup Stadium. But that was the last time I believe they did an event in an outdoor stadium because they like to do events in specific time zones. Like basically for Europe, they have to do the event in the afternoon for the Asian market, which means that if you're in an open, okay, so let's say you didn't do the O2 Arena, you did Wembley, right? Like fucking Wembley Stadium, which is the biggest venue in the UK, I believe, or among, it's a huge stadium, guys. But you could probably sell out tickets for that, I would imagine, for the League of Legends World Finals. The problem is that they hate daylight because they like all the darkness and what they can do with, you know, the lighting and everything like that and make it look very dramatic. So they just don't do those open air arenas, which is too bad because I mean, look, I thought the 2014 World Finals, that was the one that Imagine Dragons was playing at, guys. If you remember it, it had like the hundreds of like Korean drummers on stage, but they really have moved away from that because they like the they like the darkness so much, as I understand it. But I do think they could actually sell out some of these open air venues, but they could probably only do them in Asia and they would also have to get permission to do it after dark. You know, there are all these fucking rules about how late night you can go. And the problem is that, you know, at this time of year, okay, so maybe the sun goes down at 7 p.m. by the time Worlds rolls around, or 7:30, but then you might have 5 hours, so you're going after midnight, or there's sound ordinances. So it's a bummer, but that's just how it is. I guess they did it at the Bird's Nest. I forgot about that one. They did a final at the Bird's Nest, which is an open air stadium in China. So it has happened since then, but it hasn't been common.
But no, that's one thing. I actually do think that's a sort of insane entitlement, because it reminds me, the classic example way back in the day was, do you remember, it was back in like 2014 or something, Monty, when CLG did something, you remember, where they were like, if you pay this much, you come to this exclusive boot camp where like 10 people come and you spend all your time with like double lift and fucking all these, and you do all these activity, and people went mental because it was like $1,000. And again, it's like, bro, they're not selling fucking candy bars. They can't give you it for $10. Because I remember on that one, someone even calculated that if you looked how much time the pro players would have to spend with you, they were earning like minimum wage for what they'd have gotten from it. So like, people just can't comprehend the prices, mate. Like, by the way, the reason I'm saying this complaint is totally legit is, you do know that's how it is for me in the world of football, where I'm nobody and I'm a pleb. I can't get tickets to see my team play. I can't go and see the Champions League final. That's totally legit. I don't have insane money to pay the scalper or insane connections to get a special ticket in advance. Like, I'm like everyone else, and I understand that the demand is so insane. The reason I'm not going to get the ticket is I'm not the lifelong fan who has the season ticket if it's Liverpool, and I'm not the guy who's going to wait 10 hours and then pay whatever it costs on the online thing. So as a result, I've excluded myself there. Like, I think people are they have this crazy entitlement, especially because in esports, like I say, they also give you the game for free on the internet. You do know, like, that Champions League I just mentioned isn't for free. Like, I have to go and either like pay a subscription fee or have a channel. It's mental.
The game is free. The esports broadcast is free. You guys don't fucking buy the merchandise, or if you did, you buy like one jersey one time. You've never paid for anything. So I don't think it's that outrageous to pay for tickets to these events.
That's all.
But LEC, back to less about the venue, more about the actual games. Were you surprised by this?
I've got a good anecdote for you, because I've got one anecdote for you, right? Like, I know I did say on the past I won't ever diss Dutch people, but actually, technically, I don't know if a Dutch person made this comment, so I'm safe on this one. Actually, it could have been a tourist, anyone. But I'll give you an example of the sort of like weird entitlement that League of Legends and esports fans remind me of. I was once, Monty, this is entirely on brand, for whatever reason, I was once late at night thinking about getting a kebab. Fancy that. And when I thought about getting a kebab, I thought, well, instead of just doing what I normally do, which is I have a whole system a bit like your battle cannon, where I go and I try and find a place that looks semi-run down, but it's still open, which implies like it's been around for a long time, so the kebab must be good. Then I look in the window and I want it to be like a 50-plus-year-old man who looks angry at his job and resentful that he had to leave his country, but he's putting and channeling all of his like rage and his like force for life into making the best kebab ever. And he's an artisan, how he puts it together, always the same way, the exact amount of sauce. No, I normally do that, but I thought this time what I'll do, because I don't want to walk too far, is I'll just look at like Google reviews. I'll look like, you know, which one has the best reviews. I actually read them, like, you know, what they say. And I found a place that was a really good kebab place. All the reviews were mega, really good. It'd even been around like a historic period of time. And as I'm reading down, I saw that one Google review that you read where you just go, bro, I'm actually on the side of the guy who runs the place, and I hate you, the guy complaining. So this complaint is like how esports fans complain. Get ready for this. The complaint was, he gave the rating, 1 to 5 is Google's system, right? He gave a 1 star out of 5. So now, here's the reason I'm reading this, Monty. What if he's going to complain that, it wasn't hygienic, or there's like the food was all... That might be a really important review to read. So I'm reading it, and the guy goes, I came to this kebab shop, late at night to get a kebab. And while I was waiting, I saw that on the shelf, the owner had a set of backgammon. So I said to him, can I play backgammon, please? And he went like, no, sorry, I don't want to give you it right now. And he goes, and it ruined the whole vibe. And at the end, are you ready, Monty? This last punchline is almost like genius satire. The punchline at the end said, the food was great, but the atmosphere was just completely ruined. So the food in the Donny kebab shop, you're agreeing, was really good, but you gave the whole place a 1 star out of 5 because you've created the insane expectation you should be able to play backgammon while waiting for the straight fire. That's esports fans in a nutshell.
You should be able to play backgammon with his backgammon set. He's not saying you can't play fucking backgammon. Bring your own backgammon. It's not a board game cafe.
It's like, for real, I almost wish there was some satire. It's so mad in it, I know. Like, that's been burned into my brain ever since, mate. I'll never get past that. That's so like the backgammon angle. But what about the backgammon? I can't handle it. It's so stupid. It's so stupid. But technically, I don't know if that was a Dutch person. That could have been someone from Germany. Who knows? It's well, I just say myself at the end there. Whatever. Anyway, what were we talking about? Back to the
LEC Finals.
Do you know what, Monty? I made this point on my other shows. Right? I actually did say on the last Best Damn League show, we actually shouldn't do the traditional thing, Monty. We shouldn't say G2 always wins, because that's actually like what I just said about the T1 narrative. There's no reason G2 should win this LEC finals, right? I actually said, logically, we should just predict Fnatic's going to win. Like, this is the one time they should do it. They've got everything going in their favour. All the players even have had moments where they look like they could do. G2 looks terrible, by the way. But what's funny is, Monty, one of the things I've told you I really enjoy about betting is betting has forced me to be truthful with myself and eat a lot of hard-to-swallow pills that when I didn't have to, I'm like that dog. I wouldn't eat that pill. I would shove it up my mouth at the side. I would be drinking the soda instead of water. I wouldn't do the thing. But betting, because I want to be right, Monty, I don't want to lose. I don't want to lose the money, has forced me to make the hard choices. Do you know what's funny? In the end, I did bet on G2 to win. And the reason why, my winning, I put all the reasons in my mind that Fnatic's form's pretty good. And then I realized at the end, Monty, I couldn't, in good faith, bet on Noah to become an LEC champion. And so I bet on G2 and I got to win. Thank you to Noah. You actually, by the way, he actually played pretty decently in the final, I've got to say. But no, that's the problem. Like, this final isn't even, I don't think, about G2, mate. I don't think G2 were exceptional in this final or played super great. I even actually think, by the way, on that hot take show, I won't say what the take is, but I've got a mega spicy take about G2 at Worlds. You just wait for that one, boys. I actually don't think G2's even close to in their best form. I think most of their players aren't even that good. By the way, even stuff like Caps isn't an auto win on Zeri. That's not even actually a super duper strength for him. They've got all sorts of problems. But bro, Fnatic just fucking can't win. There's something wrong with these guys, mate. They can't win. Like, it's actually something's broken in their brain. Yeah, it is. Like, they can get any lead as well. They just can't close it. They can't close the game.
It was honestly hilarious in this series, just watching the decision paralysis that affects them in some of these. I just don't understand how they could possibly get to this point. And they sit there and it's like, well, okay, so we're both on soul points, but Baron's up, but also maybe we could like push into their base or like apply pressure. And they literally just sit there and freeze up in the mid lane and then watch G2 take soul and then lose the game. I'm like, really, guys? You're not even going to like try and cross map or trade objectives? Caps is split pushing and they'll just commit 2 TPs to killing him and a flash. And you're like, yo, Fnatic, there's no objectives on the map. You know that dragon you want? It's coming up in a minute and a half. Now you have no TPs and you have no flash. What are you doing? Like, you've learned nothing from, like, especially the best LPL teams about summoner and ult control. We see this angle and we must go for it immediately, even if it will disadvantage us later on. And this became a huge problem. Like, look at that first game where Oscarnen's on the Kennen. He has a fine start to the game on Kennen, but then he starts like blowing his flash to kill Caps in situations where there's nothing to take on the map and there's no advantage that can be pressed. And then he's playing a Kennen without Rocket Belt with no flash in a next crucial objective team fight. It's not really acceptable to be playing this way if you're Fnatic. They have no idea about summoner or ult economy. They see somebody in the side lane and they must shut them down immediately. They don't play side lanes themselves, and they can't actually trade objectives. Like, they just sit there and watch you take the objective.
They actually, for real, if you think about it, totally misunderstand the core concept of League of Legends. League of Legends is about how much gold you have and where it's distributed. They play Monty like this is season 2 and the kill is always worth it. They play like every kill is worth. But it isn't, like you're saying. Sometimes you blow an ult and summoners on a kill on the support, where it's like, bro, their jungler's just going to come and take the fucking next dragon now. Like, it's actually criminal. In the modern way the game's played through the objective, it's actually insane what they're doing. It's like they're basically like at war with their own chances to win. Like what we were saying earlier about the Reyna guy. They don't get it, bro. They don't know when they're ahead, and actually not fighting means they're just in a way stronger position to take the next objective. Like, it's so bizarre, because this team, it's why I actually think the problem with Fnatic is they'd be awesome if they were the 3rd or 4th seed from Europe, because they'd have crazy upset potential in the BO1s. But bro, even if this team somehow made the best of 5s at Worlds, they couldn't beat a single team that's going to be there. Think of any team that can make top 8. None of them can Fnatic beat. By the way, even people that you might be watching, like, you know, when you watch D+, just look pathetic against T1. Mate, D+ would beat Fnatic. I'm just going to say it right now. In the best of 5, I'll take D+ all day long, mate. They play a reliable style of League of Legends. Like, I could believe in them to win. Yeah.
I mean, D+ did lose a game where they were they overpushed into the enemy base and just straight lose to T1 because T1 just chases them down the lane and
That can happen. That can happen.
I'm not going to celebrate D+'s excellent shot calling, but that said, Fnatic just does nothing. Like, to D+'s credit, they tried to end the game. Fnatic just sits there and they completely freeze and they just do nothing. They do nothing. And the game that they won, I mean, look, the 2 games that G2 lost in the last, 2 matches that they played were the fucking, like, Gwen jungle games, which, by the way, I think is, generally speaking, not very good right now. And it was funny. I was doing the VOD review on my stream, Thor, and I'm like, why is he playing Gwen and why isn't he playing Brand? Isn't Brand just, like, better here? You're playing Gwen because you want to farm into a state where you can, like, I guess, punish the smolder and dive the backline, but you don't even have to dive the backline as Brand. You can just full combo and then it just hits the smolder anyway, and you don't have to, like, worry about going in or any of this other nonsense or playing without, a true, like, kind of frontline tank on this team, because the Broken Blade of the Poppy is, like, weirdly flanking in these team fights, and they're playing a fucking Cassante Rel Ivern composition that has a front line of steel. So I was a bit concerned about that. And then when they lost that game, Thorin, I saw Yike's next game on Brand, and I understood why they don't play Brand, because I watched him miss a bunch of skill shots. I'm like, holy shit, this guy is just bad at Brand. But I think Brand is just the better pick, and he did play Brand the next couple of games, and they won both of those games. Was he a little shaky on it? Sure. But it was the right pick, and ultimately, if you kind of just hit R, you could win games on Brand. But G2, sure, they've shown again that they're capable of coming back in a lot of situations. They pretty much always have fight in them. Their macro is always, like, halfway decent. They are good at side lane control.
You can tell they know Monty, even if they're behind. If they can just get to even a vaguely salvageable mid-game position, they know they have a chance to win. You can just see that in there. It's encoded into them at this point.
Yes. And they have brains, so they can think themselves out of situations. And perhaps it's just deer in the headlights of another final with G2 with some of these Fnatic players. But just like, I mean, look, I think Jun has had a great year overall. I think Jun has been a really pleasant surprise. But they have problems such as Oscarinen and Noah's variance is very high. Like, both of these guys have had very good games. They've all both have fucking miserable games. So that's been a big problem for them on the individual level. But like Cloud9, who is the one taking responsibility? Razork has been a great jungler at getting advantages in the early game, but nobody on this roster has the responsibility to make the calls. And when you bring in a Korean support, it can't be that guy. So again, I ask you, why can't Razork and Humanoid learn how to shot call on this roster? Well, in the same way I ask, why can't Blaber and Vulcan do it? Why can't these players do it?
By the way, it's even worse for Humanoid because everyone tells me who's played with Humanoid, he's got some like really good mind for the game and like sees angles in the back. Yeah, but when does it ever manifest? You know what I mean?
The problem with Humanoid is not his natural ability or understanding the game. His problem is his work ethic, and it always has been his work ethic. Like, you know when Humanoid is practicing because he gets fucking really world-class good. And that always happens around international events when he's actually motivated, guys. And when he goes back to this long-term LEC contract, as he kind of phones it in just a little bit, but he's so fucking good that him phoning it in is still like good enough, right? But you know, Razork and Humanoid should be the guys who are working on this. They should, at this point in their careers, be able to call macro games at the level of G2. Why isn't this happening? Why isn't it happening? You cannot just sit there. Like, it's not even hard macro. If you want to give up a Cloud Soul, fine. But why aren't we pressuring Baron? Why aren't we pressuring Baron? Why are we like making an intricate plot to like double TP play on, like double TP onto caps and be like, I wonder what the ramifications of using our summoners right now will be. Like, if you have time to make that plan, you have time to fucking think about what it means.
Because what's hilarious, by the way, is there was even a tweet, I'll find it really quickly for you, that Youngbuck did in response to Nightshare, the coach of Fnatic, which even though I know what Youngbuck means, I actually thought this was a little bit unfair, Monty, because especially as someone who was a Fnatic coach, he knows this isn't really the way it goes. So what happened was Nightshare, who people don't know is the twin brother of Freeze, the old ADC player, who I think, by the way, has done an awesome job this year. If you look at the roster he was given, he hasn't got a chance to upgrade parts. He's working with, I think, sort of quite a scoffed roster, but he's getting him in all the finals. I think he's done a great job. He's got him to Worlds with a good seed, right? He said, what to say? We've been 3 times in the final and found ourselves as the second place. We are all not happy with the result, but nothing else to swallow it down. Despite our best effort on improving our macro, we fail almost every rotation. By the way, notice how much more legit this is than that bullshit Cloud9 statement. He's owning it. He's saying all the things they're shit at. He goes, we are sorry. Thanks for the support. So then Youngbuck says, genuine question. Does the coaching staff and or players see the pattern in the macro mistakes? It looks like something you guys can easily fix before World starts. Best of luck. And then he goes, we do. That's the sad part for a long time. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because I actually think this is an example of where, I'm sorry, it's not that Nightshare just doesn't understand macro and he's the dumb idiot. Like, Razork and Humanoid had these issues before Nightshare ever got there, bro. They had the issues when Yamato was there. They had the issues, quite frankly, when the other guy, what was he called? I can't even remember the name of the guy who was the Portuguese Crusher or something, I think it was. I think it might be Crusher. There was a guy who was there last year as the coach before Nightshare came in. If you look at Nightshare, the whole time he's been there, they've played way better than they ever did. They've basically almost been in the finals every single time. Or top 3. Like, I think he's killed it. The problem is, this is a player issue, Monty. This is like the C9 one again. There's no player here that just needs like a taken to one side and explained what macro is. I totally believe that the coaches in Fnatic are doing the VOD reviews and pointing out, like, look, you could have actually taken an objective there. Why are you chasing after this guy? But in the game, bro, and you know this, in the game, players' brains shut off in a way that they don't in the VOD review. Like, what happens is someone like a Razork, they're like a fucking bloodhound, mate. They just get that scent of blood in the air and they have to go for it. They can't restrain that. They're not even thinking with that part of the brain. They're on the instinctual thing of like the kills there, the angle. This is one of the reasons, by the way, to make a very brief abstract point. This is one thing I do hate about practice. You know all those stories about scrim culture where in scrims people play fast and loose and in the game it ends because Bo dominates and love it, then you're scrimming the wrong way. This is a concept from Counter-Strike we understood 20 years ago, which goes like this. The way you practice is the way you will play in the official. So in the scrim, what would happen? Lopez's teams had this a lot. A lot of the Finnish players were like loosey-goosey and used to drink while they scrim, believe it or not. And what they would do, Monty, is they'd play super aggro on a CT position where you're supposed to like hold and get the information. And they'd just say to Lopez, look, obviously I won't do that in the tournament, will I? But the point is when you condition yourself that that's your response when you see something to stimuli, you will actually do that in the match. You will do times where you just fuck up in the game and you do way too aggressive a move or too like an ill-timed move, etc. You won't actually, because here's the point, Monty, and it's a very core point, is if you'd have had the discipline to play that way in practice properly, then you would also, that discipline would then bear fruits in the official game, because that would be, because you've disciplined yourself, your natural response would then be to make the correct thing, to make the restrained play, to make the winning play, to make the plus EV play. So So I actually think, I don't blame the coaching staff overall, but I do think we've got to get rid of this stupid scrim culture where you play like you're trying to humiliate the opponent in an exhibition game and mega shit down his throat via jungle, and then in doing so, rob you and him of a real macro game. I actually think at this point in time, you know, everyone kept saying that thing, Monty, because of that response to the Raynor video about LS. I said, like, but yeah, Raynor points out that in StarCraft, though, you can resume from replays. You can already do that concept in League. You just agree not to go for 50 fucking kills in the first 10 minutes. If you both agree, we play, look, we're not going to script the whole game, but we're going to play a normal game out with like normal laning. And then from, say, I don't know, the first dragon onwards, we're going to start actually making the rotate. That would even be a way to like artificially create these scenarios to play out, because, bro, this can't continue where we have teams that in scrims just shit on everyone in 9 minutes, and that game will never be seen on a broadcast stage. It's a waste of everyone's time. It's a waste of everyone's time.
I mean, I think part of it is that the teams don't agree in advance like what kind of scrim it's going to be. Like, you can absolutely just be like, okay, this is our crazy scrim block where we're going to try and limit tests and do these all-ins, but it's hard because teams are trying to train different things at the same time. And this is why having academy rosters and in-house scrims is valuable, because you can actually control both sides of it, right? Like that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's a coincidence that some of the best teams have emerged from having sister teams or having academy teams that were good enough in order to at least you could almost program to do certain things.
They actually do need to get back the concept, but for Europe, that you have to have an ERL team and a league team. You know, it would almost be a benefit, I believe, Monty, as you're saying, like the sister team approach.
I mean, the thing is, most of the teams didn't actually use that approach
very
well.
I
mean, Cloud9 did for a while.
For yours and all that jazz as well. There's an upside to it if you do it right.
Yeah, in-houses are very good, though, for hiding picks. They're also very good for setting up rules for scrims, because that way you can guarantee control both sides. The problem is that esports is weird in that in traditional sports, you don't actually practice against other professional teams. You practice on your own within your own team. You know, like if you're an NFL team, okay, before preseason, you might have a joint practice with another NFL team that is, you know, like, so if you guys don't know, in American football, what happens is we have these preseason games that are basically just like scrimmages, right? And the purpose of the preseason games is to determine the final roster. So a roster of an NFL team can have 53 players on the main active roster. Then they have a practice squad. Guess what the practice squad is for, guys? That's your academy roster right there. So they have some players that are just rostered onto a practice squad, and then the scrimmages, because the teams are still traveling to each other's locations, they will have joint practices. Sometimes like one joint practice usually per team in preseason, where the opposing team that's coming to your stadium will then go to your facility and you actually like practice together. So there is a very limited amount of that. But beyond these joint practices, in the NFL season, all you're doing is practicing against yourself. Traditional sports, it would be very weird to be every week in and week out, like an NBA team, just like, I mean, they play so many games, it doesn't really matter, but it would be very weird for even teams that play once a week to be practicing against opponents that they're about to play. Now, part of that is it's just, you know, it's very physically difficult to do that because you're traveling to these different stadiums. And so if you're traveling to a stadium or somebody's traveling to you, the opponent you'd be practicing against is literally your next opponent on stage, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So we can avoid that in esports by practicing people who are not going to play that week. But also, like, teams, why has it been so hard for teams to figure out how to apply traditional sports practice techniques into esports that don't require opposing teams? Because
you know, the craziest one, I'll give you an angle, buddy. I know it's a rhetorical question, but I'll give you an answer, which is this is actually, you're cutting to the core of the main problem with all these regions. Because they would claim because of the format, but actually LCS just proved that's not true because you had 3 weeks off and you did nothing. But they would claim we don't have time to do anything more. So here's what I think they actually do with scrims, Monty. Scrims are supposed to be whereby showing in private you can win at roughly 70% over most of your peers. You then feel confident you can beat them in the official game. That's shit, by the way, as a plan. can, but I think that really is all scrims are in the West. And then there's a mixture of you try a few champions just to see if you've got draft versatility, and otherwise that's it. Because what you're seeing is actually why I've always looked down upon people who said that stupid shit in esports. Like, well, the reason we can't be as good is because we're not practicing the Koreans every week. It's like, that would be the most like basic way to improve. You're right, because they'd force you to because they're better than you. But as you say, Monty, if you think about an NFL team, the genius of an NFL team is, do you want to know a reason that no one ever brings up? That's actually a very good reason as to why Tom Brady would be excellent at calling against the best defenses in the playoffs. He scrims against them every day of his fucking life. He was scrimming against probably the best defensive coach ever, who had loaded defenses for like 17 years.
Yep.
That's going to make you really good in the official. Even though, are you ready? In theory, Monty, that shouldn't work, because every league coach would tell me, yeah, but the problem is when you play the same people, you just adapt to them. And also, what if the other people aren't as good as yours? And then they're like, all those suddenly go out the window when it applies to real sports teams. Like you say, if the NFL, that's actually standard that you do that. Obviously, the defense plays against the offense, don't they? It's got two different teams. So, like, I think you're right. What people are missing is, it's not an easy approach, but it clearly is the superior approach. But the problem is, you have to put some guardrails on. You have to tell people stuff like, obviously, if you're playing lesser opponents, don't just go for easy kills. Do things like make the correct rotation against what they're doing, etc. This is actually even a concept, by the way. I can go way back in time. Some of the best 1v1 players in Quake intentionally didn't just practice their rivals, bro, because all that teaches you is, in a practice, how do I beat my rival? They would do stuff like, they would play against people who weren't even top pros, because what they wanted was, like, they wanted a volume experience of what do I do in every scenario, and how would I play, whether I'm ahead, behind it, all those situations. So they would actually play just a disciplined approach against someone that, if they wanted to, they could do what Fnatic does. They could take every edge in the scrim and just wreck this guy from minute one, but they wouldn't learn anything from that. They'd never level up. So what they do is they pretend he's a really good player and let him get some items, and then they would correctly maneuver, see where he goes, and that approach is just lost. Like, they really do want easy mode, where what they need is, and by the way, I'll tell you the very quick reason why this doesn't make any sense. You know, when their argument goes like this, Monty, but I'm Cloud9 of Fnatic. If I got to scrim against Gen.G, of course I'd level up. Do you know what the obvious response? I've said this to women in esports. You're going to love this one, mate. There was a team in CSGO that was dominant in that ESL impact. They were winning every time, this Russian team. And this girl who was the best player had the gall to go, more male pro teams should practice against us so we can get better. Do you know what my response was? What the fuck do they get out of the equation? Well, they practice it. You've just admitted you're much worse than them and you need them. Well, then what do they get out of it? What do they get out of playing the worst team? So if you're Fnatic or Cloud9, even if you were in Korea, spoiler, you wouldn't get all the scrims. You'd get scrims like Kwangdong Freaks get scrims occasionally. They would scrim against Hanwha. They would scrim against fucking BLG. They wouldn't scrim you every day, bro. Yeah, you'd improve, but why should they help you? So I tell you what, help yourself, for fuck's sake. Because the problem here is this, Monty, and are you ready for the ultimate cherry on top of the shit cake of Western League of Legends? Are you ready? This is going to blow your mind, bro. Do you know one thing that would inarguably make even the top teams in every region stronger? By the same logic, if they had better teams to practice against. So, Monty, do they go to the bottom of their league and practice with those teams loads and help them level up? No, they don't even scrim them, and they say, fuck off, you're not good enough. This is a waste of my time. AKA the principle, which is why they wouldn't be able to scrim Gen.G. I've just solved all of Western coaching for you. I know it took you 15 years. Replay that last 10 minutes and you can stop wasting your time, because, bro, I agree with you. We have to create, essentially, artificial scenarios that train what we want to train. We can't just hope that a random scrim where we all try our hardest makes us good at League of Legends. It's so inefficient at practice. It clearly is.
It's also just whack, because, like, one team might say, for example, like, we really need to practice Ziggs, because we're bad at Ziggs. And so they're just going to fucking, like, play Ziggs every game. And what if you're a team who's like, oh, no, we know how to beat Ziggs. Like, we don't need more practice against Ziggs. So what you end up doing is you end up playing an entire set where one team is really good at playing against Ziggs, for example, and they just stomp you. And the other team is bad at playing against Ziggs and gets stomped and learns nothing because they're playing. Yes. So neither team learns anything in this scrim block, yes. Right? Neither team learns fucking anything. It's like, we didn't get good practice because you're too good at playing against Ziggs, and we don't know how to play Ziggs. So we didn't learn anything. And the other team is like, well, you guys are shit at Ziggs and we stomped Ziggs anyway, so here you go. So what was the purpose of that practice session? You just, this is why, I mean, honestly, like, maybe, I don't know, but maybe that's part of Team Liquid's success. Team Liquid's one of the very few teams that's kept an academy roster around. This coaching staff and AP and Yun all came from their academy roster.
True. Yeah.
And they've kept it. You know, everybody else just like dumped it. I mean, FlyQuest has one. Well, there you go. Who are the top 2 teams in the league? There you go. Part of it is that both those teams have deployed more money in terms of staff as well, especially coaches, compared to Cloud9. But Cloud9 dumped their academy roster. Cloud9 dumped their coaching staff. And they went down to literally like one on-site coach. High's
By
not a
the way,
coach, guys.
one thing that does make me laugh a little bit, looking in hindsight, is remember around this time last year, Monty, where there was that crazy drama about the LCS walkout. Well, obviously, here's what's aged. Oh, the way it's aged is beautiful, bro. Is remember the whole complaint was LCS pros being like, we demand better conditions because our fellow pros in the NACL are going to lose their jobs, right? In the meantime, guys, there are now 10 less jobs in LCS itself. And you know what? It's going to get a lot worse soon. Like some more teams are leaving. There's going to be even less money in the league. So like that whole angle never ever made any sense. Like I hope these pro players now know you were never actually the one that was bringing all the value and that had all the leverage. You didn't have any leverage. Like, as I just said, 10 of you just lost your jobs. Those don't exist anymore. And some of the bigger orgs are going to leave as well. Like, that's the other thing I'm waiting for, mate. I'm just waiting for another big org to leave. Well, how bad is LCS going to be when it's some clown org takes that last spot, bro? Like another influencer team or something. It's going to get bad, mate. It's going to get fucking bad.
Well, but this is the late stage death of esports, Thorin, because we've tried every other model of making esports successful. So the newest model is Saudi Arabia eats the losses, which I don't know how long that's going to last, guys. If I tell you what, even billionaires get tired of losing money eventually. Like Saudi Arabia may have more of an appetite for losses than most other people because they have alternative motives, but they're not paying to make a profitable business. They're paying for publicity. They're paying for good PR, right? Is what they're paying for.
Yes.
And maybe they're playing some sort of long-term business game, but like esports like had a dramatic increase in viewership with the rise of Twitch in like 2012, but it hasn't gotten much bigger. And here's the canary in the coal mine, guys. If Twitch can't figure out how to make money, how can esports make money?
Yeah, true.
Like,
remember, that's Amazon, for fuck's sake. They have a connection to every big advertiser in the world, and they can't get. But remember,
they also
Monty,
own
they
the servers. They also
stuff.
own the streaming service. They own AWS.
How can anyone make it work? I know that really is like the black pill in it. I know.
Like Thorin, my new favorite meta is that some of the big streamers, like guys like Tim the Tap Man. I don't know if you've seen this recently, Thorin, but their new thing is like, oh my God, multi-streaming's amazing. You were telling me how amazing it was when you got that fat ass paycheck from YouTube to be exclusive to them. What, did YouTube not want that anymore? You know, why isn't YouTube, why is like streaming on YouTube and Twitch suddenly the play? Oh, it's because nobody offered you a giant exclusivity check anymore. Why didn't they do that? Because the business is fucking broken. The business is fucking broken. So like the idea that streamers and like stream popularity is going to somehow save us. Serious question. So LEC just had its biggest split ever according to viewership. Why was that? A lot of it was Kometo and Ibai coming into the league, right? And Cadril blowing up. Okay, so let's take it right there. If that's the case, then why are we seeing LEC's production value go into the dirt? You know what I mean? Like if streamer influencer teams are the wave of the future that is going to fucking save the monetization power of esports, then surely we should be trying to like make the product good that more people are watching, because that will result in better viewership.
Remember what I referenced last episode? There's even that thing where Kometo didn't even get space to be in the venue to do the live streaming, but we're all bragging about the numbers. Bro, the numbers are going to be even better if he's in the venue. What are we? Surely all his fans that are going want to see him, etc. Like, what is this? You know what I mean?
But like, you can just tell that this shit is so fucked. And like, you can also tell that the answer cannot be, we're going to get a bunch of co-streamers, because here's the thing. Now we know that the streamers don't even get media rights deals anymore. They don't. Now everybody's just like, well, stream wherever you want. We're not going to pay you. Like, whatever. You just have your own shit. And it's not that the streamers can't make money, but it's that these streamers, the biggest streamers, are so not valuable to the platforms that they sign to. Their exclusivity is not valuable, because the business of streaming is fucked, guys. And if the business of streaming is fucked and the business of esports is fucked, how does fixing fixing esports via streamers work when the streamer end also isn't working? Like, somebody tell me how this business is safe. This is, I hate to be like black pill, but like, this is how you know that esports is fucking doomed.
It's why no matter what people try to say or dance around, the end result will always be there has to be the consumer pay part of the money. You have to pay for a ticket, for a broadcast, for anything.
It's either, there's two choices, Thorin. It's either the consumers start to pay for the product. Well, there's three choices. If it is true that the developers make a fuck ton of money off of marketing, then we have to see developer transparency about that, because that's the only way esports teams can have meaningful business partnerships. You can't have an opaque business relationship with a developer. Okay. So if it is true that they're making money, we have like they have to start disclosing that to the teams and actually sharing that money. Number two, right, is that Saudi Arabia just foots the bill, or whatever entity ends up coming up next, guys. It's, who knows what's down the road. It'll be somebody
for you, Monty.
Somebody who wants to lose money, right?
I've got one you might like. Here's an actual idea that would work for someone like a Riot or a Blizzard, and it's a way to actually give money to the teams, but by making the teams actually put in the legwork you want them to do to build their fan base. Here's what you do, Monty. You have a thing, maybe it's when you buy a battle pass or you buy a skin or something, you get like a token, and it's the equivalent of Prime Gaming. And you as a fan choose which team to assign it to, and then they get a function of what. Wouldn't that be a great way to incentivize teams to have fan bases, etc., and to be rewarded for being like Cloud9, Fnatic, etc.? Like, that would be a brilliant way. We already know it works from Prime on Twitch. It was a great concept, by the way. I think that's actually one of the cleverer things Twitch did in the last few years. Also, I say this is someone who recently started streaming, and people keep giving me all the Prime. So shout out to all those people. But anyway, the system works, Monty. The system works.
It works for you. I don't know how well it's working for Amazon.
True. True.
They have to pay it out every time. But yeah, it's like, or the third option, obviously, beyond like Saudis or another questionable entity foots the bill because they have shady ass ulterior motives. Like, you either have developers be honest, shady entities, or the fans pay. Those are your three choices. Those are the only three choices. All roads lead to one of those three choices. You cannot, we have proven for 20 years. And for those of you guys who want to go back, when esports was successful, in the very early days, it was pay-per-view, guys, and the fans were supporting it, and it was successful. It was profitable. It was good. You know what I mean? It was smaller, but it was sustainable, okay? And it was only when the developers came in and made everything fucking free, and that was the charge led by Riot, that these issues emerged. And then we leaned on venture capital and hype, and then that form of shady money went away. And then we're like, oh, crypto, gambling, okay. And then that, you know, actually that's still there, you know. And now we're going, well, I mean, it was outrageous in Counter-Strike there for a while when everything was going bananas with those like skin gambling sites, and like, God knows what that was about, before Valve blew that up. And then like, now we're just like, oh, I hope the Saudis save us. So you guys either love this shit.
So esports is literally like, please, Saudi Arabia, help us. You're our only hope. I'm out. I'm out.
Like, why even save it at this point? You know what I mean? Like who actually? So this is the fucking.
That's even worse, because in this analogy, it's the other way around. You're actually going, please, Lord Vader, the Empire is our only hope. Please colonize our planet. Like.
We love the Death Star.
we need increased community security that only the Death Star can provide. I know, it's nonsense,
like literally the fans refuse to pay for it. So like, does it even deserve if the fans will not support it, does esports even deserve to exist? My answer would be no. It doesn't deserve to exist because there isn't a consumer that wants to pay for it. Yeah. So it's a failed business. And on the team side, like, on the team side and on the production side, now they'll just do anything to work with an extremely unethical partner to actively do PR for them to cover up for human rights abuses. So everybody is just morally bankrupt. And what's the point? Guys, tell me what the point of propping up esports is. There's no noble goal here. It's fucking people playing video games, guys. Like, you either make it a functional business or you don't. Like, I retweeted a tweet today from James Fudge. Okay. In August, when the Esports World Cup was going on, there were 41 executions in Saudi Arabia.
Okay, hell, okay.
41 executions.
But I tell you what, that Carlos guy has no place in esports. Mental in it, I know. Let me know when he kills anyone, by the way, guys. Look, as soon as he does, let me know. I'd want to know, but let me know when he kills anyone. So, you know, that's mad. Because here's what's mad about that. By definition, all the people who accepted the money are absolutely going, doesn't look like anything to me, like a Westworld robot. That's what you were paid for. I'll tell you even a sinister thing I've realized that no one else seems to have noticed, Monty. Have you ever seen, Richard's done a bunch of videos, he just did one the other day on this. You know, there were those people, Monty, where there were 2 or 3 people who, because the Esports World Cup lasted a whole month, actually right before it or in the first weeks, made tweets on their accounts calling everyone out for working for the Saudis, and then 2 weeks later had to go, sorry, I'm actually going to work the event. Monty, I'm going to go one further. I haven't heard anyone else make this statement. I think this is intentional from the Saudis. I think if you're a medium to low level caster and you tweet like fuck all that, I think they intentionally go offer him the gig. And they come to you because to make you eat your own words like that and then go, I guess I was just ignorant about their region and people. That's the most genius sports washing ever. That's what they want. It's dark, but it's like at this point in time, I don't think it's coincidence because this has happened 2 or 3 times, bro. I think in some ways that's almost a fucked up way of getting into EWCs by saying that. Then they come to you with the money. You know what I mean?
And with you know, and also all the people who are like, oh yeah, Saudi's really getting better, guys. This year, 2024, has had more executions in Saudi Arabia than any other year in the last 20 years. They're actually ramping up their killing of people. And by the way, these are cases, when you look into them, these would not be capital punishments in like most other countries. These are people getting executed for political reasons, for drug reasons. Like, it's nonsense, guys. Like, these are nonsense executions. I mean, and for the fact, like, this is still, it's not only happening more this year, it's happening more during the Esports World Cup while people are there telling you how great this place is. It's fucked up. So,
I mean, my joke would be, I actually did it on Twitter. I said, at least women can drive to the executions, though. Pretty good. Not bad.
I mean, and it's like these executions are often like mass beheadings as well. And like this is happening while people are telling you that it's fucking getting better. It's not. It's getting worse, guys. And hey, guys, do you know why it's getting worse? Because they have things like Esports World Cup to distract you from the fact that it's getting worse. So it allows them to ramp up human rights violations, it turns out. Because all of a sudden, all the PR about when you Google Saudi Arabia, your little news tab doesn't have that in it. It has Esports World Cup in it instead. That's why. So there you go.
By the way, to bring it all the way back to Fnatic, though, I actually will say, this is the original point I was making about Fnatic. I don't blame the coaching staff at all, bro. I think they've actually done as good a job as you can do. I actually think making finals is the most you could hope for. Maybe you could have hoped, since Mad Lions beat them and Fnatic already beat them this year, maybe you could have hoped you tripped over and once won a title. But even then, G2 was going to win most of them. I actually think, for real, even though Fnatic's going to Worlds, bro, I don't have high expectations. I think there are so many teams that, like, I've seen this. Even if they get a lead early, can I really believe they're going to win any of the best of threes? Probably not. They're going to lose to all the LPL, all the LCK teams. So, like, my problem with Fnatic is they're another team where I don't care how you do at Worlds, you've got to remix this roster for next year. Especially because, as I pointed out in last episodes, bro, this is actually the easiest off-season ever if you're like a Fnatic that can attract big names. Because, bro, they're all available. Their contracts are all up. You can, for real, get, like, Irrelevant. You can get Upset. You can get loads of these banger players. They're just there. They're going to be free agents. And if you're Fnatic, one, you can come at least close to the money they want. And two, you're Fnatic. They know it's where you go to Worlds, etc. So I think if Fnatic, this could be the easiest season ever for Dardo to GM. So just change it. Don't run it back. Do not run this roster back. Don't do it. Don't do it. Pick 2 or 3 players and then stick and then put 2 new people in there.
Well, also on the G2 side, I do want to give them credit for the adjustments that they made throughout the playoffs. Like, they started out getting whooped by, you know, these like triple AD carry flexes that MDK was running of Corki, Ezreal, and Zeri. And they did get bamboozled, but a lot of this was G2 like not playing meta shit. You know, the fact that Hansama like doesn't play Zeri is a problem. I mean, frankly, the fact that he doesn't play Ziggs is a problem, Thorin. He has played 3 games of Ziggs in his entire career ever, and he hasn't played a single game of Ziggs since 2021. So I am, maybe we'll see that phase out towards Worlds. I kind of doubt it. I think Ziggs is a very powerful pick because of not only his safety in lane, his ability to enable a wide variety of other picks on the map, including AD mid laners, right? But people have learned how to play him super well in terms of fast pushing, wave clearing, and map control. He is very strong. So if this is going to be something that happens at the World Championship, then their inability to play it will be meaningful, right? It'll be meaningful. But at least Caps is like taking up the Zeri. We have seen more Hansama Zeri games. They have adjusted to their take on this meta, and it feels like they're playing more standard. Broken Blade kind of went back to tanks. He hasn't been that good recently, so they said, okay, we're going to roll. It seemed like they reined in their players. Like Mickey X, he had some moments in the finals, but he also had some really important engages and like huge plays that he made in the finals. And that was another thing.
He had one game he pretty much won by himself. That was insane.
Yeah, so I think overall, there were some oopsie moments, but Mickey X also just had some crazy good picks and engages at times that were very clutch. So they look like, they took a step back and said, okay, we need to figure out our champ pools, and we need to kind of like limit our roles and play more meta. And even if they aren't super good in this meta or super good at some of these picks, I think just having less to think about in the game and being less scattershot in their approach really did help. What I don't understand, though, Thorin, is why Rumble isn't played in EU. That is something that I just don't get. He just falls all the way through pick and ban. It's like so oppressive in LPL and LCK, and it's such a powerful champion, but nobody plays it in Europe.
That's why you need Irrelevant. He's the Rumble guy, right? Isn't he the guy? Of the ones that are left?
I mean, somebody needs to be the Rumble guy, right? It was very weird to me. I don't really understand.
The reason it's also mad to me as well, by the way, is like if you think of the comps people play now, that is another champion where you can just land that ult with 100% accuracy, Monty, because the second people get CC'd, you just lay it over the top of them and your team just tears them apart. Like you'd even think it'd be a very popular pick.
Yeah. I would in fact think that. Look, G2, they stopped. I think they put some rails on their playoff experience after the MDK losses. They limited the scope of what they were trying to pull off, and that focus ended up, coming through in the end. Should this have been, a series that they probably should have lost game 1 of this series, but Fnatic's terrible macro prevented that from happening. I don't think the G2 played impressively. And it doesn't make me think ooh, they're going to be really good at Worlds or that they're better than Team Liquid, even though Team Liquid, I think, also didn't have the best series against FlyQuest. But it was nice to actually see them perform at a level, because people will say, well, we want Fnatic to win. You don't. If you care about Europe as a region, you want G2 to do well, because this iteration of G2 showed you what they're capable of MSI, and their ceiling is much higher than Fnatic. So you do not want a Fnatic roster dominating a weak G2. You want G2 to look better going into Worlds, because there isn't going to be a big boot camp. G2 is going to sit around in Europe for the next couple of weeks. There isn't time to go to Korea and come back. So they need to look good now, because I don't think there's going to be a lot of improvement between now and Worlds with the boot camp situation. So there you go. One last region, LPL, to discuss. But before that,
interesting ones.
But before that, guys, we have one final sponsor to shout out for today. We talked about this sale last week as well, but Into the AM, as we've said, up until September 9th. So we are recording this on the 4th of September. So you only have a few more days to get into this. You can head over. They're having their Labor Day sale through the 9th. You can get up to 50% off everything site-wide. I'm wearing one of their graphic tees right now. Has a lovely tall ship on it. But you can get lots of other things. Unbranded tees, pants, button-ups, Henleys for the fall, bomber jackets. They sell tons of different kinds of men's apparel. It's all very high quality. I wear a lot of the unbranded tees in addition to the graphic tees these days. It's kind of like my go-to wardrobe staple is their unbranded tees, so they're all very good quality. This sale will be going on till the 9th. And if you use our code LFN by going to intotheam.com/LFN, you will get an additional 10% off. That's right. So when they have sales, guys, you get that sale price plus an additional 10% off. And you can get free shipping not only to America, but to many countries in Europe as well. So if you guys are international, a lot of people in our Discord have been, very supportive. We're working on with Into the AM for a collaboration on a graphic tee later this year. Thank you to those of you who gave us feedback in that thread on our Discord. So we can look forward to that in a couple months. But for now, go grab yourself some stuff at this massive sale. It's one of their biggest sales of the year. It's huge value. With our code and their discount, you get up to 60% off stuff. So head on over there. Really nice quality, very comfortable stuff, fits super nicely. They have for their t-shirts, they have a very handy chart of your height and weight to tell you what shirt size you need. I've noticed they run maybe a little bit small, so check on that before you buy. But we've been enjoying it a lot. So thanks a lot. Into the AM, one of our greatest partners.
Also, by the way, when it comes to the sizing, unlike classic t-shirts that you often buy for cheap, I've also noticed they don't shrink, Monty. That's never happened to any man. They're all the exact same size. I've washed them like 5-6 times at this point in time. Yeah, it stays the same. It's not like that problem where you buy the normal printed thing and then it's like, I should have bought 2 sizes bigger because it's shrunk after like 3 months or something. Yeah.
So
right,
yes.
LPL.
Let's do it.
Right. Obviously, if people don't know, this is actually the downside the way they do the LPL. They do the LPL way too quick. So they had like the finals. And
the regionals should not have happened this same week.
It's immediately done. So people don't know, like Weibo was in the final, then lost to LNG, but then beat JD, and that's it. The regional's over. So if you don't know, the other teams are going to be, you have... obviously, BLG won the split. You have Top Esports went as the second one. And then Weibo lost to LNG, so Scout's going. And then Weibo beat JDG in 5 games. And so Weibo is going. And they were obviously the Globe team of the summer anyway. So first of all, right, and NIP lost narrowly to JDG, right? First of all, NIP shouldn't really have gone to Worlds anyway. Like it was actually kind of like a late playoff run anyway. And like some of those players, Forting, etc., they never really held it together. The JDG one's a bit sadder, Monty, because actually, as we were referencing about other shit we were talking about, this is something else we talked about on Hot Take Point Made, the one that's forthcoming, is I do hate this narrative that morons are going to have, where they're going to think like, I guess Ruler just isn't that good this year. No, he just doesn't play with Chovy or Knight anymore, you moron. He plays now with Yagao and Flandre. Like, you know what I mean? That's a bit different, isn't it? It's a bit different when it's not 369 as a tank coming in there. It's a bit different when it's not Knight with an insane damage burst mage about to kill their carry if he comes on your arse. All of a sudden, you're playing sort of a different game if you're Ruler. So, by the way, if you're Ruler, you're still a fucking amazing player. In your case, and you signed for megabucks to JDG, you have to just stay put. I think he's contracted for another year. You have to just hope they get a better solo laner. Like, by the way, the obvious angle is let's just hope Shea has all of his paperwork in order, dots all the I's and crosses all the T's, and that he has his, he has that portrait picture where he doesn't smile in the passport. That's definitely him. And then when you scan that barcode, it goes, yes, this is an 18-year-old player entering Worlds. If that's all true, I think next year they could be really good still. Because Spoiler, they've still got a sick bot lane. Kanavi's still dope. Sheer has a lot of potential. They could be a much better team, bro.
By the way, my conspiracy theory that Sheer is not actually of age is aging very well, unlike Sheer himself. Because here's my, you ready for my updates to the conspiracy theory, Thorin? So my theory as to why they would play Sheer through the end of the regular season and do really well, and then suddenly for playoffs just like swap in Flandre for apparently no reason, is that, remember, you actually have to apply for visas well in advance before you qualify for Worlds. So if you guys don't know, Chinese visas, if you're going to be a Chinese citizen and you're applying for a visa in Europe, it can take a long time. So what you have to do, what the teams do in this situation, is like anybody who has a chance to go to Worlds has to apply for visas far in advance. Same thing when Western teams go to China. Like you'll see the LCS, like every team in LCS playoffs, like apply for Chinese visas if Worlds is in China. So it takes a long time. So my theory, Thorin, is that when they came to playoffs and they actually had to apply to visas, they didn't want Riot HQ to know, because remember, Tencent runs their own shit in China. Like, Riot could have no idea what is going on in the LPL. They have nothing to do with that, and they don't oversee it. But as soon as it's going to be Worlds that's run by Riot HQ in Europe, they would have to probably help get these teams get visas, and they might actually have to see Shear's passport at that point in time. And that's going to say, in my opinion, that he is not 17 or 18 years old. It's also possible, Thorin, because I haven't seen a Worlds rule book yet. Remember, LEC changed the minimum age last year to 18 from 17. It's possible that that has something to do with European law, right. Especially if they want
some sort of labor law, maybe. Exactly, yes.
Labor law, or if they want a liquor sponsor or an alcohol sponsor potentially, right. Or a betting sponsor, because that's
maybe even being a venue where there is alcohol served. Yes. It could be something like that. Yeah,
I have no idea. Right. Yeah. But they changed the minimum age of LEC, so that makes me wonder if the minimum age of Worlds also changed because it's being hosted in Europe. Also, and this is what you get by talking about these things publicly, people told me, and I have not verified this, so take this with a grain of salt. People told me who are like speak Chinese that on Shear's stream, he let slip that he was in 5th grade in 2018 when IG won the world championship.
What age is that for people not American? What's 5th grade? Like 14 or 13
10 or 11.
10. Holy shit, well, that's impossible then. That was 6 years ago.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And by the way, apparently he tried to walk.
Such a rookie mistake to make as well. Oh, by the way, if you don't know, that's like a famous lie. If you don't know, it's just a humorous one, Monty. If you don't know this lie, Kamala Harris claims that in college she used to bump Tupac, but she didn't go to college when Tupac had done music yet, Monty. It's just a blatant lie. Like, it's like one of those ones where, like, why would you even let that info slip if you haven't double checked the year? That's actually wild. If he did say that on stream, obviously we can't verify it.
Also,
it would be wild
apparently he tried to walk it back later and be like, "Oh no, I wasn't in 5th grade in
2018." Get this video and tweet it at Monty. We want to see this video. We want to get our experts on the case. Bring us that video.
So apparently there's some sus things happening with Shear. So that's the latest update to my tinfoil hat theory, guys.
Basically, what happened is they put Shear in a fucking raincoat, like one of those like beige raincoats. They put like a trilby hat on him, and they said, "Just go and apply for the visa." And he goes, "What up, my dudes? Skibbity Riz, can I have a visa?" And they go, "Get the fuck out the office." "Oh, you blew it, Shear. You blew it again, bro. What the fuck are you doing?" I can't handle it. It's so wacky. I know.
So that's my latest Shear conspiracy theory about why JDG did not play him in playoffs or in regionals.
I love it. I love it.
And let me be very clear about this, guys. This isn't one of those times where Monty knows things. I literally know nothing. This is literally just my whack-ass conspiracy theory. But deductive reasoning is rather strange around this one. And I think my theory holds up. I think it holds up.
And also, in case you're wondering, because when you see Flandre, you're going to think, well, he's like a veteran player, used to be very good, he's won Worlds. Guys, Flandre isn't in that portion of his career. Like, this isn't like let's take out the rookie because, like, with a veteran can hold the team together. They would have been such a better team if they could have played Shear in all these matches. Like, they might even have made top 4 of the playoffs directly if they had. Like, I think it's plausible. So it's so sad to me that they couldn't play this player because it just kneecaps the team.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say Flandre had, like, a terrible run through playoffs, but they were. It is weird to make a lot of these changes so deep into when you're committing to like Shear being that guy. If we're going to be honest, like Yagao is actually the biggest criminal.
He is. Yeah.
Like,
this has been a good for him in general, by the way, guys.
It's
like, he used to be better than this. No. It's actually funny, by the way, that people often contrast him with Niski because his fall off is comparable to Niski's. He kind of just insta at times and does really weird moves and can't sort of play up to the level of his peers sometimes. I don't get it. So he used to be better than this, I'm telling you.
Well, look, I just don't think he's that guy on a lot of these like AD champions. I think it's a bad meta for him.
Yeah.
And we can talk about this as well, Thorin, but part of the issue is that if Riot changes this so we don't have a lot of these AD mids at Worlds, we're going to have a bunch of teams that qualified on one meta for this World Championship, and the meta is going to just wildly change before Worlds, which could make things super weird at Worlds. I mean, I hate it when they do this. Like, if you're going to you can't just let us have AD mids for the entirety of summer, change it after playoffs are over, and then just be like, well, I wonder how these teams are going to do at Worlds. Surely we're going to see a really great competitive tournament. Like, no, it's going to be wacky as fuck. Like, I'm sure T1 will be happy, but you know.
That's also, by the way, low key, a real angle that at this point in history you can use to actually diminish Faker because of Riot. It's like, bro, they just make it a zero Rihanna meta every fucking Worlds. Like, and that, if he's the greatest of all time, why does he have to have his champion pool be the one that's flexed every Worlds? Like, notice how, by the way, remember back in the day, Monty, in season 3, when my beloved Froggen was called a bum because he wouldn't play like Zed and Cassidy in every game because he played on like late game scaling EG where he would play like a mage, for example. That scenario, I was just told, suck it up. You have to play what's the meta. But magically, Faker never has to go to Worlds and play Yone and Yasuo and fucking Zevi and Silas. He doesn't have to do that. He gets to go every year and go, haha, I am on an easy lane matchup now. Like, that's just boring, guys. Come on, it's whack. It's whack.
Yeah, surely they buff Ari for his skin right before Worlds as well, right? That's
Meanwhile, on the opposite side, think about this. On the opposite side, one of the only disses against Knight's champion pool is his Azir's never been that good, and Azir's every single Worlds meta. It's like the game's nerfing Knight and buffing Faker every World, for fuck's sake. Why can't we just let the players decide who's better? What are we doing? What is this shit?
Yeah, when it comes to JDG, when it comes to Yagao, though, it's like it's not his meta. And when we've seen Yagao be at his very best, and I will credit, like, I actually really like Yagao as a player because he's really creative. Like, he's one of those players who really thinks outside the box, and you can throw very strange scenarios at him. And especially when he used to play Rise, like the realm warps and stuff he would do were fucking next level, man. Like, he may not be the best mechanical player or the best standard player, but if like you give him tools to like play on the map with, he's actually quite a good player.
Oh, he's another one. Give him a Talia, something like that. He's gonna fucking make some happen.
Oh
yeah, of course.
So I think it's a bad meta for him. He was playing badly. And like that also really, I think, sapped a lot of JDG's strength. But it's still a bummer because, you know, the core of this team is, you know, most of the team is still there from the Golden Road team. I mean, losing your solo laners is a giant blow, obviously. But it's a bummer that we're not even going to get to see them at Worlds. I think that sucks quite a bit.
It also shows you, though, how deep the LPL is now, though, bro. This has to be I don't think there's ever been a bigger gap between the LPL and the LCK, like, overall. Like, maybe Gen.G could be the best team, but, like, if you look at, like, the top 4 to 5 teams in the LPL, fucking stacked, bro. It's really
I think
teams.
it gets pretty ropey after Hanwha and the LCK.
Yeah, it does.
I think Hanwha's probably the third best team in the world, but then I think you probably have a couple, you know, LPL teams after that before you get back into listing LCK teams. So average level might be a little bit higher.
And by the way, here's another angle too, Monty. Think about the 2 teams that qualified. Weibo with Tarzan and LNG with Scout. It's almost like these 2 players are really good at League of Legends, isn't it? Bro, how do people, aside from being Faker stans, how do they diminish all these players? Like, bro, again, Tarzan might have some issues internationally and the odd playoff slip. But if you ever watch him in a regular season, he's just a fucking brilliant jungler, mate. He's just really good at League of Legends. And he's done it now for like 6 years or something, mate, like 5-6 years. He's actually been cooking for years and years, and now he does it in 2 regions. Like, I understand, like, everyone, the downsides of this player, but you've got to point out the upsides. He's a really fucking important player in the league.
Yes, especially domestically, right? Especially domestically. I wish you would come back. I wish you would come back to Korea. It also
both from the comeback, don't we? Just bring both Scout and Tarzan back.
I think what's interesting about Tarzan too is that he actually does seem to have the late game shot calling capabilities that we have been talking that players like Razork and Blaber appear to lack. Because he does pull his teams together in terms of macro. And I think we can credit this to him because LNG's macro hasn't been as good. They are no longer like the macro team that they were last year. And the big shift that happened on that roster was Tarzan leaving the roster. And it took a while for Weibo to kind of pull it together, but they have, and Tarzan and Light have been the 2 best players on this team. They've been the 2 best players on this team.
You know what, Monty? This is going to hurt some people's feelings because how could anyone ever suggest anyone be removed from T1? But if I was T1, dude, if I'm T1, I'd consider trying to get Tarzan if he wants to come back to Korea. Think how mega this guy could be if he played with Faker, mate. Those 2 would surely synergize really well. I think that would be awesome.
The macro would be crazy.
Even though I do think in EWC, Owner smurfed and actually was fucking dope in that final, especially. He is one of the players that is the most fragile in the team and does have times where he just looks like he's lost. I think someone like Tarzan would. I think he would. Faker would love to play with this guy. It's just my opinion. I think they would get along really well and sort of align with their vision. You know.
Agreed. I think it would be very interesting. Tarzan's also just would provide another carry threat onto the team. Yep. And if anything, if I'm T1 and if I'm Faker, I want a reverse Bengi scenario where I'm the guy supporting a carry jungler.
Yeah.
And
that would be perfect at this point in his career.
Owner really isn't that guy. Owner really isn't that guy.
No. I mean, Owner's style, that's why actually those two aren't that well coordinated out of the fucking all the players in the team. Owner's style actually is better suited himself to be with like a super carry mid that he can just gank for and lease in all day, isn't it? Like, Faker isn't that guy though.
I think the best thing about Faker and Owner's synergy is their engaged synergy, where they're both playing engaged champions. I mean, that when we think about like the peak plays of T1, it's like bot lane completely crushing, like Zeus on a counter pick, and like, you know, Guma, Keria, and Zeus carrying the game, and then Faker and Owner deciding when to start the fights and getting the flanks. That is the best iteration of T1. So I think Owner and Faker have great synergy on team fight engages, like really good. But yeah, I think there are many ways that Faker could probably play the game, and maybe there are more useful or harder carry junglers that could be activated in that way. We'll see though. I doubt this T1 roster lasts beyond this year. I don't think we're going to be re-upping. Faker's the only player I think who's under contract after this year anyway. So the rest of them just signed 1 year extensions. It's probably going to China, I'd imagine.
By the way, if you don't win this Worlds, all you ever did was win one split and one international tournament. It's just time to move on. That 2 years of that roster is enough. Like, you just move on, get in, re-up. Because like I said at the beginning of this year, look, it's going to age beautifully if they don't win Worlds or LCK and win nothing this year. I personally think it was silly to even run it back.
It was.
In my opinion, you quit while you're ahead and you've won that Worlds. You go, you know what? In fact, let people think what if, but actually don't think what if. Go and get some mega stud jungler, some mega stud ADC. You get Viper. You know what I mean? That would have been the move. Like, then you could have, like, imagine T1 now, guys, with Faker and Zeus, but against like fucking Gen.G, but they have Tarzan, they have Viper or something like that. That would be fucking sick. Who wouldn't want that? They'd be right in the mix to win everything. Whereas right now, there's another thing, Monty. If we're shading for Worlds, as of right this moment, I'm not even trolling, bro. Even with the meta's switching to help them, Faker's clutch, bro, T1 is like, what, the 6th or 7th most likely team to win Worlds? Like,
yep.
I'm not even being ungenerous by saying that. Like, it's not this, unless you just believe history repeats itself. There's no reason this team wins Worlds this time. So I think the season's going to be a bust, personally. Yeah. I actually think winning EWC was the one bright spot. Like, there was that, and then you made the final of Spring Close. That's it. MSI was a write-off. By the way, you almost fucking lost to G2 in that one. And then this summer, I think, like I said, I think they're just going to end third in boring fashion. I think at Worlds, I'll make a prediction now. This is the time they either just go to quarters and lose, or they might even just get grouped. This might be the one time ever Faker doesn't make it out of Swiss. It's plausible. Think about the teams they could play. By the way, there's even a world, you saw at EWC, there's a world where TL could beat them in a best of 3. That's not off the table. That's a real possibility.
Or G2.
Yep, totally plausible. Yeah.
That has almost happened twice, guys. Like,
yes.
at MSI and at Esports World Cup, that has almost happened in both those instances, and it's not unfeasible to think it could happen again. Yeah, I agree. But I mean, with BLG, when it comes to talking about them briefly, because people are going to be interested with them coming into the finals. Yeah. So first off, like, Bin has been absolutely electric, like, this entire summer split. And Knight, even though he was a little bit wobbly at first, he stepped up in a huge way. He was incredible throughout the playoffs. And in this final, he was amazing. Wei, they took maybe a while to synergize for Wei. Maybe there was happy gaming on BLG. Like, famously, they went to a lot of game 3s that seemed kind of unnecessary during the group stage, right? But come playoffs, they switch it on. Elkin is having a much better series. Like, yeah, game 3 was a little... On was pretty bad at that Bard.
Even though, by the way, BLG didn't lose a series in this playoffs, On in general has been mad sus this summer, I think. Like, he had some crazy hits, doesn't he? He's got some really wild ones.
So, but Knight's performance is made up for. I mean, the number of like double-digit kill games we've seen from Knight, especially on Zeri or Corki, has been. I mean, he's really taken to this like AD mid meta, and he's been fucking so good. Bin, like I said, has been on point, and it just feels like it took a while to really like switch up. I mean, they completely changed the style they had from spring to summer. And not only of like playing through their bot lane, but switching the jungler entirely and having more of a top side focus. And Wei has really delivered. So I think it's worked. It was a risk to make some of these moves, but they've adapted very nicely to the meta. And like you really saw that in the playoffs. It didn't feel like Weibo had much of a chance, honestly.
No, sadly in the final they didn't. I mean, they did an amazing job to get there and they won all those clutch games, blah, 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 all the rest of it. But no, they weren't going to win it. Like, look, I will say, after seeing the way Weibo played against all the LPL teams, they are actually, again, some sort of a dark horse to do a run at Worlds. It's not impossible. Like, they've got good players. It's just the thing is, like, I actually don't, for me, that's a team that only wins like 3-2 in close games. You know, they're not going to dominate. So I think it's an interesting team to put in the Worlds mix. Obviously, by the way, I'm a big fan of people like Zhao Hu. Actually, I agree. I think Light played awesome. When he used to play on LNG, I used to be a critic of this guy. A bit like Gala, I think actually over the years, these players have leveled up and they've gotten better. And we have, by the way, the LPL just has an amazing talent pool. Like, if you go and look at these rosters of these teams even competing for Worlds, fucking hell, they can go deep. They've got some really good players in that region.
Yep.
I'll try and find, I had a stat I tweeted, but I'm going to have to find it out quickly. I'm scrolling back. Because there was like a few stats for you that I had that were fucking mental. Let me see if I can find it. Let me see. Because it's going to be on Saturday, right? That was when the finals was. Was it Saturday or Sunday that the LPL final was? Do you remember? Which day was it?
Let me look. I mean, it would have been a different time for me, probably. It was Friday. It was Friday for me. It was Friday night in China. It would have been Friday morning for you in Europe.
I'll try doing the advanced search for this. Because I had some stats for you that are bangers. Let me see. All right, here's a good one. So when BLG won this final, Knight won his 5th title, which actually tied him with Zhao Hu for the most LPL titles of anyone who is active. So Knight, by the way, if you don't get the premise, now has the most LPL titles in the history of the LPL. He only started playing, I think, in something like 2018 or something, bro. Like, this is why when people diminish these players because they didn't win Worlds, you're missing everything else about their career. Sure. You're saying because of this one thing, nothing else matters. Spoiler, it does matter. And you know it matters because I'll tell you what, here's how I know you're all full of shit T1 fans. If T1 wins this LCK split, are you going to go, whoa, hold up, guys. Wait for Worlds, though. You're going to celebrate. You're going to say, hey, if they can just beat Chovy, you're going to suddenly care about LCK and you're not already going to care about Worlds. So we all know you don't already care about that. Here's another one, though, that when Knight won that title, it was his 4th title in a row. Are you ready? He was playing in his 6th final in a row.
Yep.
And in his whole career, he's been in 8 finals now. Also, on the side, just fucked around and won an MSI. Bro, the only thing you can say is he hasn't won Worlds. That's it. He's been an MVP. He's been everything. The only thing he hasn't done is win Worlds, which, by the way, we just said before, is a tournament without double elimination. It now has a semi-randomized Swiss system. It uses a weird qualification format, unlike any other esports game, where a set number of teams qualify, even though, like in Counter-Strike, for example, you can have like 12 European teams go. So if you would play, by the way, if you were like Rookie and Knight in the LPL of like Counter-Strike, you'd be at every major, every single one, pretty much every time. So already the game's so stripped down. And we've just said earlier, they permanently switched the meta to always be control majors in fucking mid lane. Like, bro, like this isn't a normal tournament. This isn't just it just so happens if you're the best, you win. It's like there's a million factors that can play against you in this game. So if you look at the totality of this guy's career, what a fucking unbelievable career he's had. It's actually fucking sick, bro. It's legit sick.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing. And this is why, as we talked about in the last episode, that Chovy versus Knight should be the main storyline heading into this world.
I mean, as you always say, especially because we didn't get the Rookie versus Faker one that we asked for 5-6 years. Bro, we can actually get this one now. We already had it at MSI. Let's hope we get it at Worlds. That would be so fucking beautiful. By the way, it doesn't even have to be the final, Monty. Just give me a semi-final BLG versus Gen.G. Just give me that. Give me that best of 5 at Worlds. That's what I want to see. The T1 angle's not really that big a one for this World for me. I don't even need to see them lose for revenge purposes. Just give me the Knight versus Chovy at Worlds, bro. That's what I want. At Worlds.
Yeah.
BO5. Let's do it.
Yeah, and look, we got some other good LPL teams in there. Like top petering out towards the end was a bit of a surprise. Like losing to Weibo was a bit of a surprise. Yep. We'll see how well they can do. Like Cream is one of those players that might actually get hit by moving away from an AD meta. That's definitely possible. LNG, if you guys know, they're not the macro team that they were. They make a lot more macro mistakes now. But Scout did turn it on, at least in the summer, and like got them over the hump.
Wait, little Scout trivia for you. He had just qualified to his 7th World Championship, and he's only been playing since 2016. So you do the maths on that one.
That's pretty crazy.
There's another player that just
that means he's made every Worlds except for one.
Another player that just gets like criminally underrated because the whole thing is he's not Faker. It's such a reductive way to look at the game, mate. You know what? I've got to blow your mind here, guys. League of Legends isn't Faker. The sport isn't just about Faker. It's so whack, isn't it? It's so fucking whack, mate.
It's just funny, like how long some of these players have been around and how many international tournaments they've made, and they're not actually celebrated more. Part of that is just the Chinese like scene popularity, but that's honestly on LPL and Riot for fumbling, the broadcast of that.
And by the way, without burning my point I made on Hot Take Point Made, I'll just say something that might blow your mind. If you ever dare for 1 second to critique Rookie and Scout for their accomplishments, you know what I'm going to say? And this is going to hurt your feelings. How about your mate Faker go and do something then, bro? Tell me when he goes to the LPL and speaks to people in English or learns broken Mandarin and he shot calls and carries a world championship. Because I haven't seen him ever do that once. I've seen him sit in what you call the catbird seat in the greatest org in the history of his country as they over and over again ram all LCK players around him over and over again until eventually, and also spend tens of millions of dollars over and over again, and then he gets to win again. I've never seen him go to the LPL and do that thing I've just said and then win but I tell you what, he's supposed to be goated, so go ahead and do it, pal. Don't let me hold you back. You go ahead and have that victory lap in the LPL, brother. You go and see what it's like, by the way, when you're playing like the 7th best team and you have to like play against Yagawa or something like that. Like, mate, it ain't easy over there. It's fucking hard in that league. I'll just say this, Monty. There's a reason no LPL team has ever won 2 Worlds. And it's not because they suck. It's because the region's insanely competitive, bro. And you've got all these mixed rosters of Chinese and Korean players. Like, that's why people like BLG are rare. They're all Chinese. That's extremely rare in the LPL to have elite teams that are like that. So I think people always take that for granted, that some of these Korean mid laners are playing in like fucking English with a guy who speaks Chinese. And we must be as good.
Or they've had to spend years learning Chinese, like Scout or Rookie, right, to become fluent in the language in order to play in the region.
All those guys, yeah.
So it's impressive. All right. I think that'll wrap up our conversation, Thorin.
My first ever person on Twitch chat there. Just actually banned him for life. There you go. Because he told me to stop talking about Faker Monty. Now, spoiler, the idea on Summoning Insight, we're going to stop talking. We invented talking about Faker, you rat. You know nothing about Faker. We are Faker when it comes to esports media. So we're going to talk about ourselves. There you go.
It turns out, guys, I was actually the first person to talk about Faker in English. So shut the fuck up.
There you go. Exactly. By the way, I have one last detail. I have one last little thing, but it won't be very long. I just wanted, as a commentator, to get your thoughts on this moment. So there was a moment that you might have saw Rich's Wrath made fun of, but I agree with him completely. Bro, you know the thing, and remember, Medic was the original one. Wasn't Medic the one who made the G2 call after MSI, where it was like, I think it was him. I believe it was him, not Dracos, right? Wasn't it Medic who made the call that, the greatest team of all time in T1, like, false, because like the greatest League of Legends in the world is from Europe or whatever. You remember that like iconic line he had? I'm pretty sure it was Medic, right? Here's the problem, Monty. He's gotten into that fucking syndrome that casters do where they desperately are chasing the dragon of that exact call. And he had a call in this final that was so fucking whack. So it was when, at the end of game 2, you can look in the VOD, at the end of game 2, when they're about to blow the Nexus up, when Fnatic levels the series 1-1, he says, and I quote from memory, Munich, stand up! Soak it in! You're witnessing history! Except all that happened was Fnatic tied the series 1-1 and then went on to lose 3-1 convincingly. Like, that call would be sick, Monty, if Fnatic just won 3-2, or if they just like closed out a series, or they came back. But that call is such a reach for a 1-1 tie, or even went up 2-0. Like, you're seeing Fnatic about to defeat G2 with a sweep. That call is so fucking hackneyed, bro. It's such a reach, you know what I mean? It's such a
when
reach.
I was doing my VOD review, I didn't notice that. I mean, I thought Medic was
reach.
actually like he had some very funny like puns, I think, in that cast, and I like generally enjoyed his casting. Like I think it was quite clever. Like Medic like slides a bunch of stuff in under the radar that I think is pretty funny. A lot of
some funny stuff, yeah. But yes, personality.
That moment, I don't recall that moment, but yes, I mean, I think it's hard because you're also, as a caster, you're obviously balancing. Remember, they only get one of these finals a year now.
Yeah, true. Oh, you obviously want it to be good. I get that. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
You're also like amped up yourself from being in the arena, so sometimes you have to like take a deep breath and like remind yourself of where you are in the match, and like shit happens. Whatever. I don't think that call like ruins it or anything, but it is a little bit ridiculous. Like, it wasn't actually that hype of a final, in my opinion. In my opinion, like we've had a lot better. Like it was really just like Fnatic doing nothing. I found it rather depressing to watch, but the atmosphere and the fact that you only get one of those stadium finals a year now, if you're an LEC, maybe you're just a little extra hyped, just a little extra hyped. And I also think you want to give people, like, it's your job to elevate that experience into something epic at the same time. Maybe that was a little too, maybe you put a little too much into that one, but
apparently I was wrong. It was actually Dracos who did that call that Medic was trying to chase. But that's even worse then. I at least thought he did the call. He was trying to replicate his own call. He's just going for an epic moment there, is all, Monty. I get it. But I always say this. Unfortunately, I have a lot more experience than just you little daughter clone noobs who only know fucking League of Legends. Bro, I know the greatest caster ever at doing that. He's called Sadikist, and he was unbelievable at knowing when to crowbar like the canned moment that just pops like a motherfucker. And I'll tell you what, as much as, by the way, he had plenty of downsides. He was someone who was distracted. He wouldn't even put in the time. He actually genuinely, like the meme, did only put 50% of his effort in the game. But one thing he was amazing at was this, Monty. He never, ever had the bad trigger discipline to fire one of those moments early. He would, in fact, I even can tell you, he sometimes banked those if there wasn't an appropriate moment. If he was waiting the whole game and there never was that moment for like half of a poem or a rap lyric he was going to get, then he wouldn't do it. He'd go, there wasn't the right time for it. I get the feeling some of these guys, like you say, they're like, it's my one chance. It's the season. They're just going to force. They're going to crowbar it in there. You know what I mean?
But in CS, you have a ton of these stadium events where it's like, you get more reps in that environment. It's about having, just like being a player. It's about sometimes the nerves on stage, or like, you're trying to make the big play too. Right.
Yeah. True.
And like sometimes you just fuck it up, and like that's fine.
Yeah.
But it doesn't help casters that we're down to one stadium event a year in regions, because unless you're already super experienced. I mean, Medic has a good deal of experience, but it's like, the CS casters, just like the CS teams, there's just more big lands. There's more times to like shine, and also the mistakes are not quite as under that scrutiny either. Because there's, you get the next LAN and nobody's going to pay attention to it for that long. So I don't know. I think it definitely sounds like an overreach, but also like, at least it wasn't the infamous like Draco's Frostgrin World semifinal cast that was like bafflingly bad. I can forgive a moment. Some of the cast though, like the bias in that cast was like absolutely insane. And by the way, I thought both Draco's and Frostgrin are good casters. So it's just sometimes you both have a bad day at a very bad time, and that's just
their
unlucky.
problem, Monty, was it's a bit like in school. They're just the two kids who shouldn't be allowed to sit next to each other. Separately, they're totally fine. Put one of them with Thaddeus, put one of them with, I don't know, you pick someone for Medic, and then that'll be fine. But when they were together, that was the problem. It was the combination. They did sort of like what's that thing from Dragon Ball Z where you do like that or whatever and join with the other person.
Fuck,
what was that called?
Is that? Hold on.
Someone must remember in Quickshot. What's it called when you join forces like that and you like make an Archon essentially of the two of you? Like, Veggie trunks
The
or whatever.
fusion dance,
What's that
fusion
called?
dance.
Fusion dance. There you go.
Yeah.
Their problem is they fusion danced into the most intolerable caster of all time. But separately, they were both really good. I agree. Like, I'll tell you right now, I don't give a fuck what she said about me on Twitter or whatever. I still, when I watch the LEC, just think to myself, like, some of these casters are all right. Some of them are good. But, like, I actually do miss having people like Frostcore. I thought they were very good. It's why I think it's so sad they don't use bloody Trouble Inc. and they just leave her in the wilderness of the LPL. Even though, by the way, she's not only, I said this on an episode of Side Select that's coming up. One of the best things about Trouble Inc. for real, Monty, is this. She doesn't think she is like you or Frostcore or LS, some like hyper thinker. She knows she's not, but she doesn't overreach her bounds. She knows to stay within where she knows what she's talking about.
I mean, I find her analysis very good.
Yeah, that's what I mean, though. She only says things that make sense to her. She doesn't make a reach of some crazy thing that she doesn't quite understand. And then also, I just find her personality to be incredibly amiable on camera, mate. She never says anything that annoys me, pisses me off. Somehow, it's like, she can even give opinions I don't agree with, but she just packages them in a way that I find very easy to digest. I think she's just a fabulous fucking character.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I legitimately think Nymera is probably the best color caster in LoL right now.
Yeah, it's why I said after watching the LPL this season, he has to be like top 3 commentator. Like, I'm assuming people are going to want their favorites, like, you know, the fucking Dracoses and the Captain Flowers of the world. But after that, this guy's the best. This guy's the best out. No, but if you just count all commentators, this guy's the best out there after that. Like, I mean, yeah, for color, who the fuck even compares anymore? Remember, all the people you liked as color commentators don't work anymore. Gadrol is gone. Papa Smithy got. There is no one. Who are the other colors that people even like at this point in time? You don't even like Wolf, and I like him, but you don't like Wolf. You random shitter at home. You all think he's a bomb or something, don't you? So who's left?
I mean, I think like it's true though that so obviously like being a color caster in the Asian League makes you a better color caster because you're analyzing higher level gameplay, and you also are just getting more reps. So not only are you watching better games, you're analyzing better games in teams, but you're also doing more games in general. So I do think like a lot of the LCK guys, I like Loki. I think Ox is also really good. You know, Ox, Chronicler, Wolf, these guys of the LCK I think are good. But like I think Nymera's just reps in the last couple of years alone have really elevated him. And Trouble has been like, I find myself whenever I do LPL VOD reviews and Trouble is on the cast, like she and I almost say exactly the same things at the same time sometimes when I'm watching these games back. So I find her, you know, generally to be on point with what I'm thinking about the matches.
Skills it.
So yeah, there's a lot of good casters out there that
also, you know something, Monty, a lot of people will miss this, but I can always tell as well who does the job for the money, for the fame, even just because they're good at the job. People like Trouble Inc., I promise you, actually love League of Legends.
Sure.
Like, for real, they are actually waking up enthused to go and watch the match and to talk about what they've studied. I can just tell it comes off the screen.
Yeah. So it's a shame that probably Riot will use 0 of those LPL casters at Worlds, just like they use 0 of those LPL casters at MSI, because budget cuts, guys, because budget cuts. And that's apparently the first thing that has to go, even though they're both in Europe and Worlds is in Europe, they won't use them.
Also, get ready, because for 1 millionth time, Monty, we're going to have, like, here's the obvious joke. We will get Gen.G versus BLG in the final of Worlds, and the casters will be Captain Flowers, Corby, Medic, and then fucking someone else I don't give a shit about. And then they'll all go, oh, and of course, Chovy's won a lot of LCK titles. And then they go, yeah, and the way that Black Knight plays on the fucking Silas, but no, fuck it, get out, boo, boo. So we'll finally get it. But like all wishes with Jin or genies, Monty, unless you check the fine print, it'll never quite be manifesting how you want it to be, will it? You know.
Well, what I just don't understand, Thorin, is for all the obsession of having, you know, broadcasts be like traditional sports broadcasts that Riot always had, what they would do is the equivalent of putting like college football commentators who have done 0 NFL games in the Super Bowl. It's like, why would you do that? Why would you do? They don't even play in the same league. Like the level of competition is not anywhere close. You're not even equipped to talk about the NFL because all you're doing is seeing fucking run option and wildcat offenses in the fucking college football game.
Actually, by the way, that's actually a great analogy, because if people don't know, the jump between college in American football and NFL is probably the craziest sports gap of all time. It's the reason why it's the ultimate sport for the Boston #1 pick, no matter how good they look in college. Yeah, of course.
Well, and that's also why, you know, the funny thing about the NFL is there aren't even 32 NFL level quarterbacks, which would be one for every team. There's like 16 at any given point in time. That is how hard it is to be a fucking NFL quarterback, because you have to be really smart.
The shopping spots, yeah. Because I know what you mean, Monty. It's the reason why. How many times do you see this play out? Someone takes a really promising college quarterback, but what do they always do? When he fails, Monty, and they have a 4-7 record, you just bring in like Andy Dalton or some like boomer guy who can just play the most basic checkdowns.
Joe Flacco.
You just bring them in, and I tell you what, that's what proves there aren't enough talented players, because those people shouldn't really be like a starter anymore. But if the team's gone to shit, they can run the basic offense like that. I agree with you. I actually think it's why the two things that I hate the critique of is NFL quarterbacks and NFL head coaches, because guys who are sitting with a beer talk like that's an easy job to do, and it's probably that. Like, I think coach is almost impossible, bro. Think about how many players and teams you're coaching, and then you'll coordinate with the GM on the draft pick. Oh, it's a nightmare, bro. I think it's a miracle people can be really good at that job. It sounds amazing.
Well, not only that, but as a head coach, you usually come from, you're obviously coming from like either defensive or offensive coordinator. So you already have a specialty that is only one half of the game. And so then you have to find somebody who wants to work for you, who doesn't want to be a head coach or isn't qualified to be a head coach, who can actually fill in those gaps. And then you have to trust them to do a good job because maybe you don't have that expertise. It's actually an insane job. It's a fucking insane job.
Because, by the way, as I always point out, the other one that triggers me is when someone is an amazing offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator. They get the head coach gig, they fail in season 1, and then the fans act like that shows they weren't even good at their original specialty. It's like, holy shit, it's the opposite. It shows they were already good at that. They haven't learned. It's the opposite analysis. You got it wrong again.
Especially as far as professional sports go, the NFL is probably like the most dependent on having a good having good coaches, because it's basically like coach chess with people.
Yep.
Because it's basically turn-based coach chess with people, and if you don't have a good coach, you just fucking suck. Like, it doesn't really matter. I mean, unless you're Peyton Manning and like you are actually secretly the coach. Or Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, I can tell you was definitely covering up for a lot of Nathaniel Hackett's bullshit. And as we found out later,
I mean, mate, even some of those years at the end with Mike McCarthy, mate, you would start a gig because of him. He was just throwing like 40 touchdowns. You can't. It wasn't you. You didn't have the schemes. You were just running some 90s West Coast offense.
Yeah, it's also like Adam Gay's Giga exposed when Peyton Manning retired.
Oh, by the way, that's one of the reasons why I think I have better arguments, because like in everything, I just try to think laterally. Whenever I do the Brady versus fucking Manning thing, I just start with, you do know by definition, Peyton Manning played with one all-time great coach, and he was a defensive specialist. That's it. Tony Dungy, that's it. None of the Broncos guys would even be all-time great coaches. They're just like good or competent coaches. In fact, John Fox was kind of like a mid coach. Yeah, he was kind of a bit mid, wasn't he?
The problem is John Fox doesn't have balls. You know what I mean? And it's like he wouldn't let Peyton go for it famously in that Ravens game that they lost in 2013. And like, look, I love Kubiak. I think Kubiak is a very good coach, but Kubiak is, I think, much more of a personality manager, and he just kind of let Peyton do his own shit. So.
And you think about what that defense was like. It was all like massive superstar ego. That was man management shit, Monty. You're right. That team, that was one of those teams like the Seahawks defense, where you're not really like charting all they do. They just run the fucking game, and you just keep them from killing each other basically, and make sure people take turns.
And low-key also, probably the most important moves were personnel moves, because even Von Miller says that bringing in DeMarcus Ware into that defense kind of got him on the straight and narrow, because Von Miller was immensely talented, but he was very like undisciplined, and he was he's basically said like DeMarcus Ware like saved my NFL career because he taught me to like actually fucking work. So but yeah, also like there were some big person, like Aqib Talib is like a crazy person, and he was on that roster too. So the personality management was crazy on that team, definitely.
Right, should we do some viewer questions?
This show is already 3 hours and 45 minutes long, so I think we'll cut viewer questions for this week, because we had all of the playoffs to go through, guys, and I need to sleep. But when it comes to the next week, we're only going to be talking about like LCK finals and LCS finals. So we will do all of your viewer questions that next week.
You can ask them
next. Yeah. Ask them next week. And the week
Subscribe
after that
to the Discord, and there's a channel where you can put the question.
And also after that, we'll just be doing like LCK regional. So the next few weeks, we'll have plenty of time to do viewer questions. And obviously this was probably the biggest weekend of League of Legends for the entire year, because we had 4 LCK matches, LPL finals plus regional gauntlet, LEC finals, and then the second to last week of LCS. So it's been fucking crazy. Been obviously fucking crazy. So anyway, that'll do it for us this week. Thank you very much for watching, guys. We will see you. And sorry about the viewer questions. We'll get to them next week. See you then.